I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 27th, 2020 public session of the Garrett County Board of Education. We have a short agenda today, but it may be somewhat long as it deals primarily with the budget, but there are a couple of other items that we'll need to address as well. First item I'd like to address, first item that we're going to address has to take polls. Once again, I'd like to remind all of you that are calling, are on the call, please mute your phone so that we're not talking over one another. First thing we need to do is take roll, make sure that we have everyone present. So when I call your name, would you please identify that you're here? Rodney Glotfelty?
Present.
Matthew Paul?
Here.
Monica Rinker?
Here.
Charlotte Seabold?
Here.
And I think we also have Karen DeVore on the line as well. Is that correct? Perhaps not. We will, periodically, we will have some of the cabinet of the superintendent to address some of the questions that we have. So periodically, you may hear some of those folks. We'll try to identify them as they speak or ask them to identify themselves. First order of business is the Educational Facilities Master's Plan, which will be presented by Mr. Weslowski to bring us up to date on our facilities.
Good evening. I presented you with some documents regarding the Educational Facilities Master Plan. Just tried to highlight some of the changes between 2019 and 2020. A lot of the data is kind of straightforward. Some of my observations, some of our school ratings have dropped. When I did a, I wouldn't say a real drill down analysis, but we have some outdoor cleanliness issues, indoor cleanliness issues, which really, kind of caught my attention in terms of where some of the downgrades were. So, as we know, we use this as a document to kind of guide our planning forward and budgets and so on and so forth. So that's just kind of my 30,000 feet kind of take of where that is. I added some other things in there about the STARS program, some changes, some different things. And then the data's been updated with enrollment and so on and so forth. Okay. This is first read, so I'll take any questions.
The only thing that I noticed, and maybe it's just didn't get in, each of the schools have a page that's notes of things that you've indicated.
And they're all yellow.
Yes, but Northern Middle doesn't have a notes page.
Oh, okay. I'm going to make a note of that.
Okay.
No notes page.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought the notes page was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
It kind of gave you a broad brush view of everything that needs to happen at that school.
Yes.
Any other questions from board members?
I have a couple.
Okay. Probably it would help if you can remove, I did, but if you can remove your mask when you talk. Folks at home might be able to hear a little better.
So as I went through, I did also notice that interior cleanliness.
Yes.
And so that seems like that's something that we, I don't know if it's talking about paint. I don't know if it's actually talking about cleaning, but, I would hope it was a maintenance indication. So if you would check that out, because I did see that several of the schools did have that noted as I went through.
Yeah.
Also, something that I picked up on was the equipment on the roof seems to be a really problem. What is that problem actually? I mean,
Our mechanicals just have age to them,
okay,
and they need to be replaced.
and they're sitting on the roof of our building.
Yeah, they're whether air handlers, HVAC units, heating units that sit on the roof.
Okay, okay. So the fact that they're old is probably why they were brought
Yes.
forward. Now, I noticed Southern Middle School, that's something that, was a problem there.
Mhm.
We just put a new roof on Southern Middle School.
I'll have to check on that specifically. That's just one unit or what that,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, why we would have a problem with that when we just did the roof? Because it seems like when we do the roof, to me, would that be part, maybe, or should be? It seems like if
probably,
you're gonna be ripping stuff off.
yeah, I don't know the scope of that project. We might have just put the roof around it, at that point. I can find that out.
Okay. Another one is, Southern High School. I noticed that we had, I can't remember if it was like a fair, I've got them all written down here. Fire and safety equipment was a fair, and we just we did the, safety entrance, and we did the fire, alarm system at Southern.
Right. The fire alarm will be counted next year. It's not done.
It's not finished.
No.
Okay.
It's, it'll be commissioned they're gonna start testing it here in the next couple of weeks to get it online. As
Okay.
soon as we get the fire marshal to okay it, then that will obviously change that score. Yes.
Okay. So that was, because I thought that was already finished, and
No.
that's why I asked about that. So that'll be next year.
Yes.
Okay, on the roof, it's like, so I had a real hard time, I'm not an expert at this in no way, understanding what equipment on the roof, ventilation, because ventilation equipment and equipment on the roof, are we talking about different items? I mean, they were,
Most of your air handlers and units are sit on tops of buildings.
okay.
Yeah.
So, because we got poor on, equipment on the roof on 1, 2, 3, 4 of our schools. And ventilation, we're about the same 4 schools.
Yeah.
And roof conditions, you have roof conditions too. And I'm assuming that, we had Route 40, Swan Meadow, Accident, and Broadford.
That's it. Those are your top 4.
And they all said roof conditions, so I'm thinking that that's meaning a brand new roof.
Yeah, yes. Those are the top 4.
That we're getting leaking.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
working on Swan Meadow now. That's gonna be done sooner than later.
Okay. That's all I had for right now.
Monica?
Thank you.
Yes, some of the questions she just had, I had. Like on these roofs, how long do you think they'll last? Like you just, there's 4 lists and you said one we're addressing now. What about the other 3 we're talking?
Timing's perfect because I'm meeting with our roof guy tomorrow as part of the CIP.
Mhm.
But my understanding, looking at the inspections that have been done already, we have to address Swan Meadow. That ridge line's leaking, you can see it in the space. Accidents, we try to do some patching this year but it's on the list. It has to probably be done sooner than later.
Mhm.
Route 40's that whole issue about the bad panels and the litigation, which we have to work through. And then Broadford's,
Right.
we're holding Broadford together, but that's probably the best way to say that.
Okay.
So those, when I present the CIP, will be I'll have them in order, but those are I'm hoping to take care of Swan Meadow this year. And an accident, and then kind of work through that. Okay? Yeah.
Like she said, we had roofs, there was 4 mentioned, several things had equipment on roofs. Also, it said Northern High School, bricks need repointed. Is that what we're currently doing at Southern High?
Yeah,
Similar, or?
the bricks up, we did the front facade was done there over a decade ago, and it's just starting to show, some age. Some of the caulking's coming in, so we need to look at doing some restoration, like we did on the back of the building at Southern. We need to do that on the front. I recently got a quote for that, put that in the CIP.
Okay.
It's a pretty costly thing to get a company in and do that, but that's something that's what I'm looking at, is we need to do more exterior restorations of our buildings. You'll see a lot of down marks on it. We don't do a lot of
Right.
power washing and different things. So we gotta bring some of the exteriors back up to, so that's part of what some of the things we'll address in the budget.
And then several in there was interior climate condition, and that means when it gets hot because it's needing air conditioning, is that correct?
Yeah.
depending on where it is located in the school,
Correct.
certain areas of school.
And I have to research the metric they're using for cleanliness, because that just kind of caught me by surprise. So let me get you some more information on that.
So, yeah.
I'm not sure if what they're looking at, are they looking at crawl spaces or spaces that aren't clean, or are they looking at cafeteria floors? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what that evaluation was done on, but I can.
Yeah, that was the question.
Okay.
And then you had Southern Middle School, said open space design, ready for complete renovation. Crellin, building needs renovated, and then it said Grantsville, building open space needs complete renovation. So we have 3 schools that were listed that said
Yeah.
needs renovated, correct?
Yeah, those are your top 3 for, and you could also put closing. I know Friendsville was somewhat closed, but it was kind of done, you know, as a locally, but I may look at also.
And then there was a lot that said paving too. Like, now, is that
Paving.
something that we have the county, we use county road department somewhat too? Or?
Yeah, that's, unfortunately, I had some things worked out with the county, but they pretty much cut their paving budget this year. But yes, we would work something out. I am gonna put in the CIP a placeholder for a certain dollar amount, and then rank our buildings, best I can. But we need to pave almost every one of our parking lots. I mean, they're in bad shape. You know, it's a natural, like your own driveway, it's just a natural cycle that you have to do.
And our weather doesn't help.
Yeah, and our weather doesn't help, our plows and everything that we do on that doesn't help.
So I guess if we can't get them paved, I guess we can pass them then to make them go through? Is
Yeah,
that
we're gonna,
correct?
as soon as the mill opens up, we're gonna do some of our normal hot patching and get a truckload and shovel it off and, you know, just kind of make the best out of it. But we'll make some things work temporarily, but it's just as bad in some spots.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I seen you had on the Hickory Environmental Center, it says ADA guidelines, pool and paving. Now, can we get some kind of grant money to do that, or do we have to do that all
Yeah, we do.
in-house?
I did the pool lift with,
Okay.
The pool should be done before the end of the.
I don't know what funding, so she got me funding to put a pool lift in,
Okay.
special ed.
Maintenance of our
And then, yeah, to expand the bus loop, Jason had the trees taken down, and then we were gonna do the bus loop and then put some handicap parking at the top. That's kind of in limbo because the county was gonna help us do that.
Okay.
So that's still on our plan,
That was
and they're aware that they can do one thing for us this year. That's the one thing I'd like them to do. We'll just keep our fingers crossed. It's gonna be late August before we probably get to that though. But
okay.
that hopefully will address those issues at Hickory.
And then this is a new one I've never seen before. It says, Route 40, kitchen is extremely hot. So do we need
Yeah,
more ventilation?
There's an exhaust fan there, but it's, on really hot days, it's tough in there. And, the natural thing is you try to open the door, which brings in the whole safety thing. But, that fan is, it works. I mean, it functions, but it just doesn't pull enough air out of there. So on some of those hot days, it can be challenging in there. Yeah, but we can look at that.
And then, overall, it looks like we had, 10 rated poor. And a lot of them, we just said ventilation equipment on the roof conditions. One was electrical, it's moved to fair then. Interior climate. But I noticed something on your overall at the end, you have a rating score. And it looks like one, that dropped the most, the rating, went from 89.8 to 79.6 was Northern Middle School. When I compared it from last year to this year, it had the biggest, increase.
For decrease?
Decrease, sorry, yes. Increase in number, the rating went down, sorry, decrease, yes. It had the biggest, and that was when we said didn't have no comments, correct?
Well,
Was Northern Middle.
and I'd have to go back and look, but people have said to me that, you know, Northern Middle is kind of to the point where it's just kind of been the shiny penny and you just kind of, it's Northern Middle. But I think now
Still needs maintenance.
well, it's starting to get to that, because renovations are 15 years. I mean, that's what we're gonna find out when we get into our study here. You wanna renovate, you're gonna get 15 years, you wanna build new, you're gonna get 50. But that 15-year cycle of Northern Middle is starting to get to that
12.
point where, you know, it's still got the shininess, but there's other
Right,
things
things
that
that
start
need
to,
addressed.
yeah.
Yeah, when it was last year when there was 0.4 and 0 fare, and it was 89.8, which was very good. And then it's 0.4 and 0 fare again, but then the goods were very good last year, and then they went to goods, and that brought it down 10 points on
Right.
that. So,
Yeah.
so I think it's probably just showing, the use over the, what'd you say, 10 years?
Yeah, use and age.
That's there, so they didn't feel like they could put very good
Right.
any longer. So it's good is probably good at 10 years or how long it's been since we did that.
And you get them the notes page. That will certainly give you more information when we get the notes page that Mr.
Yeah,
Wood.
exactly. Yeah.
Like being on Northern Middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
And like on Southern High, in your notes, it says athletic fields need equipment properly stored. Do we not have a designated spot to store it now?
Yeah, we've done some things, with like little storage buildings.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to have one nice storage facility where we keep everything under one roof instead of this little mixture of sheds that are, so we're gonna try to address that with the turf project, try to get rid of all those little things.
Mm-hmm. And then I had seven more, but that's it. I have one more comment though. When we looked at the state rate capacity, and I had brought this up last year, I remember, is when I'd seen it had changed, state rate capacity. And then we had said, because by the state rate capacity numbers up until last year when we got this book, it added 1,203 more seats in our school. That's a big, because when our schools were built, they were built for not only because we have it, the state rate capacity was by following criteria. Now it's changed, correct? Like the computer, there was a computer lab. Now that's considered a classroom. Like, is gym considered a class?
Yeah.
Right, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
they do add certain square footage for gym as an instructional space now, and it wasn't like that in the past. Yeah. Gotta change the
Redid the
IMC.
entire state, they redid the entire state, so when they compare us, when they're looking at projects,
Right.
it will now reflect a statewide change.
But we don't have that many empty seats, I can.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know, but I just, from what,
Yeah, I know, it was eye-opening to me.
when I caught that, I was like, wow,
I
1,000 more spots.
thought that'd be a smaller percentage change, but not quite as.
Matthew or Rodney, do you have questions?
I'm good. I'm good.
Anything else? This is the first reading, so we've got a month to look at it before we, or not a month, about 3 weeks, I guess, now, to look at it, before we, make a decision on it. So, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess
Thank
you're
you.
still here though, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Now we're gonna talk about this electric rate bids energy initiative that, you brought to us,
All right.
for consideration tonight.
Let me tell you the whole story and how we kind of got to today. Okay. All right. Every state's required to have an energy efficient initiative. Maryland's is called Empower Maryland, the Empower Maryland program. If you look at your electric bill, you're going to see a line item that says Empower Maryland. Our current bill at Northern Middle is about $600 a month of our bill, of our large bill. So what happens is with that money that's set aside, they offer rebates for energy initiatives. So Potomac Edison is offering one for 2x2 and different LED light fixtures. Okay, it's set up to be a small business minded program, so this LLC that I'm dealing with, I couldn't do the work, or we couldn't do the work that they would have to do in terms of the paperwork, getting the rebates to try to take this on ourselves. So this is kind of set up to get this LLC to really do all the work. We get all the benefits in terms of the free fixtures. We get the savings on the electricity. They get the benefits, they're the one who collect the rebates. So it's kind of twofold. So where we got to today, we started working with this company, and the obstacle that I ran into is, in order to do this, I need to hire some outside labor, like electrical companies to kind of assist. because you're taking out a 2x4 or 4x fixture, take it down, put a 2x2, the ceiling tile and all that. We don't have the manpower to do. We could do one school, I don't know, maybe in a year. So when I talked about this, I said, I can't go any farther unless I can get some money for labor. So I need money to pay for the labor to do this. We have a lot of local electrical companies we have quotes from, and it's about $12 grand a school to try to get this. So Robert, who we're working with, brought this contract to us as a way to bid out our supply of electricity to lock into a lower rate. They're producing savings in our overall electric bill. And I provided that in the document. What's not in this document is I have not calculated up yet the savings that we're going to get by not buying the fluorescent light bulb, because we're going to go to the LED panels. There's no cleaning an LED panel, there's no flies in them and all those kind of things that come with it climbing a ladder. And then obviously the life of an LED bulb versus the current fluorescent bulbs. Our schools currently all have the fluorescent bulbs. When Johnson Controls went through, they lowered the wattage of the bulb, right? They went to a higher density light bulb, which allowed them to eliminate bulbs. So instead of having 4 in a unit, they went to 2 because they changed the bulb. But at that point, and I know this question will come about LED, at that point around when Johnson Controls comes through, and you might remember this in your own personal life, LED was just kind of coming in on the fringes of it was kind of new. And if you remember trying to buy an LED bulb about 6 or 7 years ago, they were twice the cost. So these 2x2 panels now are down to, we can get it from Scott Electric for like $42. So, but at that time, when they would have tried to go LED, the cost was there. And so that's kind of how that landed. Well, why? Because somebody questioned, well, why didn't you go LED back then with Johnson Controls? And there was probably a little bit of caution with LED, 6 or 7 years ago. But now it's it is the way to go. So that's kind of what the contract is for. You can see it was bid. Everybody that responded, 36 months versus 48 months. And that's our projected savings by signing the contract. Okay. So I'm going to talk too fast.
This is Rodney. On the potential savings by buying alternative energy, I see those deals come through all the time in the mail, and if you look into them, they're usually they limit you to like 2 years with the savings, and then they can charge you whatever they want. And so you have to be careful with that, I think.
Right, and I was informed, Rodney, that don't compare this to anything that they send out residentially. This is all on the commercial side. But I can't give you more details on, the difference in that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they just don't, they're not going to raise the rate after an introductory period of time. So you probably ought to get that in writing.
Okay.
I had a question, and I had asked Mr. earlier, so he would know that I had the question. The question was, how will this mesh with the Johnson Controls as far as saving the money? The savings were equated to the lights that they put in. So when we figure the savings, we're supposed to be figuring the savings from that to make sure that we get the money. I mean, there was a guarantee. That was guaranteed savings from them. So how can you change the light to a different kind of light? What would that do to the savings?
Well,
how could
I can't answer from the time you went from Johnson Controls and then paid the money, and then you changed the baseline of the lighting to the high density bulbs and all that. There was a savings that was to the school system. Okay. What I'm going to do here is replace the Johnson Controls, upgrade what they did at that particular time to something even, and then so we're going to take that baseline to where we are now with our electrical costs and hopefully lower it down just to another baseline. I can't go back to see what that difference was in your first original when you went to the Johnson Controls, because I know they came in, they guaranteed all these savings,
Right.
And it was more than lighting, it was a lot of other things that went with it, and we're still paying on it, I get that. We're paying through 31, I think,
Yeah, well, we have two
Yeah.
two contracts with them. But what I'm saying is, you know, I guess, have we given up on trying to figure out whether we're saving money, with their lighting? I mean, it seems like we're putting in something, that we were guaranteed savings on, now we're getting something else that's going to be different from what we were, I mean, so the other program is over, we're just still paying?
You know, we signed a contract for all that equipment, correct?
It was an equipment lease, and yes, we still have to pay on it, but it wasn't just lighting. It was also a lot of faucets and water fixtures. So it's not just electric that we would be saving. It's also gas, it's water. I mean, it's all of our utilities are bundled into that savings. In the first couple of years, there were rebates that were part of it, and that contributed to part of the savings. But the first contract, the first Johnson Controls contract, the savings was only guaranteed for 3 years, and after that, there's no, like, you go off because technology changes, rates change. You know, that's the way that those contracts are. We're on the final year of the second contract.
Correct.
And we have received the reports, they're called M&V reports.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't remember what M&V stands for, but they send you a report that says not only the utility usage savings, but then other soft cost rebate savings that you receive. So they
Yeah, I mean,
in the M&V report, they have proved the savings for these first 3 years. And it's exactly what Mr. Wazowski is saying. We're just targeting for a new lower baseline because technology is always gonna be changing.
10 years from now, LEDs will be obsolete.
Right, exactly. And the other thing is that Mr. Wazowski's bringing that unfortunately we haven't done previously that we should be doing is bidding our rate, our electric rate. We should be going out every 2 to 3 years because we use a lot of, and that has nothing to do with an equipment lease, and it doesn't do anything to negate any savings or anything with respect to that. So I think it really just makes good sense to keep looking at any of the costs that aren't instructional, and that's what Mr. Wazowski is trying to do, to cut the increase for maintenance and operations so that the board can keep 13 facilities open. You know, like that's what we're really trying to achieve here. So
we did a total bulb replacement at Northern Middle School, and those lights are it's unbelievable, the lighting. I mean, unbelievable. And there's a gym at Friendsville.
and those two spaces were not part of the Johnson Control project. So
We're using Northern Middle School, their $25,000 a month electric bill. It's kind of just to kind of see, you know, we'll be able to see some savings rate hopefully within.
So the $60,000 is strictly for labor costs.
Yes, I need labor costs to install all these fixtures.
But from the savings comes the LEDs. How are we getting the LEDs? So
Robert gets those through rebates and gives them to us for free. So we replaced every bulb in Northern Middle School, and we didn't pay one dime for it. Well, we had to dispose of the old ones.
yeah.
And there's just a process for that. And so we want to do accident with this money, Accolades. I'm going to go ahead and purchase some for Southern Middle School. Even if we renovate it, there'll still be ours.
Sure.
But we need to illuminate some of that space there. If you've been in the hallways in some different areas. The high schools are hot because they're just so large and there's so many fixtures. Try to do the lights at the stadiums with the LEDs. So it's got a lot of potential, but I just really needed the money for the labor to really make this work. We just don't have enough.
Rich, the LEDs are cheaper. The LEDs are cheaper to operate too, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And the other question is the lighting superior to the lights you have in now?
Yeah, I can tell you, we'll probably only turn on half the lights in every room at Northern Middle going forward. It's that bright. I'd imagine they'll keep it down. And remember, none of the savings on this paper is anything with our electric bill yet, in terms of, this is the kilowatt per hour based on the bid.
You think you can save on the electric rate enough to pay for the labor?
Save on the electric enough to pay for the labor?
Yes, but that would take, to recover that money would be a lot longer, and the rebates on this thing end in 21. There's a chance they might be extended due to COVID, but we've got to move by January of 21 to get, before this program. That's not to say they won't extend it, but this was a quick way to do it quickly.
Okay.
To verify, the contract that we have with Johnson Dock Controls, I know it's energy saving, and I know it's not electric, you explained that. But is there anywhere in there that if we did this and switched out what they put in, the lights, the fixtures, like, will that affect what we have with them at all? I mean, like,
On the first contract, the savings is over anyway. It's not guaranteed any longer because that time period ends. Because technology changes, people have to change their mechanicals. They may add AC, because too many variables change. Those contracts are written so that they only guarantee it for 3 years. So the first one is over. Where they have gone so far and planning to do, we didn't do the lights in Johnson Controls in those spaces right now. And really the thing that we would have to look at is the second contract, but again, it ends at the end of this fiscal year, the guaranteed savings from that one.
And they're upending, they're in the schools on this second phase. Johnson Controls comes and they adjust things. I mean, they're fulfilling their obligation. Now, we could possibly look to renew our contract with them, but that's not the normal in the industry. They take the savings.
Renew the savings contract, because there's a whole nother contract for the savings.
Yeah.
Above and beyond the equipment lease that we have.
Yeah, I remember, I'm not sure that was explained to us when we first got into the first, as far as the fact that ran out, and if you wanted them to come back after the 3 years to show that you had savings or whatever, you had to pay them to come back. So, that's sort of a catch-22. That's what I worry about with the contracts. I did notice one thing on there, that we got the lower rate, but then there's this utility cost that is added onto the bill too. It's in the contract. Is that, do you know what that is, and is that going to run the cost up more?
No, Potomac Edison's is going to be the one that provides our energy because of the area. So we're always going to pay Potomac Edison to bring it into our buildings. That's the infrastructure. We're going to buy our supply of electricity from the company there on the bid. So
we're like a third party. There's like MV, and then there's like it's a MVPS, and then the other people here. What is their name?
Freepoint Energy?
Yes.
Yeah, that's who we're going to buy that's who's going to supply our electricity through the supplier, which is Potomac Edison. So some of those lines will come off of our bills, but they're still going to supply it. It was all part of it. I think it was 12 years ago. They did deregulation in the energy. So you couldn't get stuck, no monopolies and all that kind of stuff. So this is just kind of taking advantage of the fact that we could, because we're such a big buyer. You obviously would do this for a small little bit. You're very attractive with the amount of electricity we use.
I'm sure.
You see that many bids we got.
The only thing I would like to do before we move forward is, since there is a contract involved, like, I know you've had some interaction with our board's attorney, so I'd like, Brandon, for you to give whatever input you feel that we need to hear as well.
I just have a couple questions to start with.
Okay.
A moment ago, you mentioned Robert. Is that Robert Vandenpoel?
Yes.
Is he someone we work with regularly?
Do we work with regularly?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Because I guess you've received my email with some suggested edits to this one-page
Yes.
contract.
Yes.
I don't know that we want to necessarily hash those publicly,
Okay.
but I made sure that the board members saw my comments on that. I think that we need to do some touch-up
Okay.
on that one-page agreement.
Oh, the one-pager? Okay.
So that's where I'll start my comments.
Okay.
Do you have my comments?
No, with me. Oh, you're here. She has it.
There's on that.
Okay.
I think most of those are probably pretty easy to fix up. I mean, kind of stylistic things, spelling out the corporate name better, saying where the company is established, putting the rate.
Okay.
On the 3-point contract, couple things I know you all are aware of that. Our contact information is missing on page 1, and the service addresses are still missing on pages 2 and 3. What I can't seem to find, I'm sorry.
But I guess I didn't get you the updated version. I thought I'd made those changes, those suggested that you had sent me.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty much,
Yeah.
specifically, if it's a 36-month agreement, I have scanned this document, I've done a global search on the document. I can't find anywhere where it says 3 years or 36 months. If you look at the anticipated volume, it goes 37 months, but nowhere in there. So I just feel like they should,
Okay.
and I think that's a very simple thing
Yeah.
to fix. I commented, and somebody already asked the question about the extra charges from paragraph 3. And obviously paragraph 16, confidentiality of the agreement, is something that's not likely, since this is a public body that would approve
Right.
in public. And, you know, a little concern if our facilities should change, whether we're bound.
Okay.
I don't know if they would give us some kind of an escape clause that if Garrett County Public Schools footprint changed.
Over the next 3 years? Okay.
And I'm not sure that that's even going to happen, but the board always wants me to look for anything that might happen. So
Sure. Yeah, we can.
those are the main concerns I had. I think the little one-page agreement can easily be fixed as long as MVPS is willing to make a few minor modifications. And I'm thinking 3-point would not mind to add a paragraph somewhere that said this is a 36-month agreement. And then the one other thing I noticed in reviewing shortly before the meeting, page 1, broker says NRG Kiosk, LLC. And I just wasn't sure where they fit in if we're using MVPS as our broker. Page 1, second box down.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
So I'm just not sure who they are. I think that's all.
Somewhere along the way, did we get some information, from the last, that indicated a savings of between $80,000 and $100,000? Is that the projected savings of the reduced rate?
Yeah, that's taken our, we took a sample of all of our electric bills and just applied this new rate to what.
To that bill,
And
yeah.
just kind of gave.
That's above and beyond the $60,000 you're asking for labor costs.
Yeah.
So basically, we're asking for, or we're anticipating we could come out of this with $160,000 of
And then whatever
labor
else we
costs
get,
and savings.
whatever else we get on our utility bills
Sure,
of the new fixtures.
sure.
This has a lot of potential.
Well, the LED lighting is something ultimately we're gonna have to put in our schools anyway. I know, we probably all of us have some in our houses, and it's an incredible difference of light, you know, and I think a very good point you made was we may be able to turn half the lights off.
Yeah.
And still have the same lighting that we presently have.
Most of the full retrofits will knock our fixtures in half, you know, so that'll be helpful.
Hey, Rich, have you actually vetted, this MCPS, checked with other places that have worked with him, those type things?
Yes, he does a lot of work in Philadelphia with colleges, so, he sent me a group of references that I followed up on, and he's been spot on with everything that he predicted with terms of the savings that they got. He's more in the wheelhouse organizations our size, like colleges, small, it's just perfect for him.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
I did vet him, and he's been upstanding with me through this process.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Any other questions? Monica?
This was new, we just got it today to make sure that I understand a few more things. You said it would cost about $12,000 per school to hire an electrician to do this, with putting in the light, moving. Okay, how many schools are we looking at? Because we have some Johnson controls that they switched to lights, correct? So we're not targeting all the schools right now, or are we going to target all the schools?
Well, we're going to start with the ones that have the most energy use, which is our largest schools. The 4 secondary schools, obviously, Accident, Yacht Glades is kind of where we'll start with those 6, and look at the other schools from there. Some of them won't be a fixture week, because we can just get replacement bulbs and go to an LED bulb and not mess with the fixture. Some of the fixtures are older and don't fit into space in that. But yes, I'd like to have this touch eventually all of our facilities in some way, because it only produces savings to us.
If it becomes the flavor of the board to approve this, I'll gladly work with Mr. Waslowski to, do whatever we need to do to make these small changes to the contract.
Yeah, I think it's certainly, any vote we take, if the vote is favorable, we would expect that to happen as a board. But
I appreciate that.
he gives final approval.
This is in my wheelhouse.
We're paying him to know how to do contracts.
Yes.
So then that's where we're saying about the 60,000, the cost, spend 60,000, so what's, for the do 6 schools?
Well, there's 2 contracts. So one is the agreement for the commission, where he's gonna just defer it straight to us so that we can use it to pay for this labor. You don't have to use it you can use the 60,000 for whatever you want, but Mr. Waslowski is recommending that the board allow us to use it for that.
Sure.
So then, that's the one agreement. The other agreement is for the rate with the free point. So it's really two different things.
So the 60,000 actually is coming from them, not from,
It's coming from free point.
right, not money that we have to put up front.
Right.
He's going to pass it to us.
Right.
Taking the labor.
So then will you keep, or there'll be a record, or like of our savings, like, because with Johnson Controls, we've requested over and over, and we've never seen anything, like, the savings from it. So we could get, something to be sent to the board to verify?
This will be electric bill to electric bill.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's the only way you can compare it.
Right. Because the rate, the only thing with the free point thing is that the rate is gonna go down.
Yeah, right.
That's the only thing,
There has to be a savings.
right?
I mean, there has to be a savings.
And he's given projections, but I'm not going to share them because the projections are projections.
Sure,
you know.
sure.
Just, the school building's so hard to project because there's so many things. And then this COVID-19 with everything being closed, I mean,
Got a big savings, that's right.
trust me.
Okay. We have the electrical rate bids energy initiative for action this evening. We've had, I think, certainly ample discussion as to understand it better before we go to a motion. So at this point, I will take a motion to move forward with the electrical rates bids.
I'll make a motion to approve it, providing that, Mr. Hoover's, concerns are addressed and that, he continue to work with the company to get those things addressed.
Okay. You've heard the motion for a second. Second by Matthew. Motion made by Rodney, second by Matthew. That, we approve the electrical rate bids energy initiative package presented with the, caveat that, Mr. Wazlowski will work to ensure that the contract has all the pertinent information and protect the board.
Right.
Any further discussion?
I have two quick questions. If this passes, when would it, like, officially start? Soon?
June 1.
June 1 of this year?
No, July 1st.
July? Okay.
Okay.
July billing statement. Starts a little bit,
Correct,
so,
yeah.
you're right.
Well, you're both right.
Yeah, we're both right.
She's right for paying the bill. You're right for when do I get the money?
Yeah, we get the money, yeah.
And then the projected savings from it, we said 80 to 100,000, as Mr. Woods had stated, that would be approximately for 3 years, is that correct? Or no,
That
a
would be
year?
an annual.
That's annual.
Okay.
That's annual.
Yeah, that's significant savings. Look at it.
Okay.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Aye.
And the motion does carry 3-1. Thank you, Mr. Wazlowski.
Thank you, Mr. Wazlowski.
And now we will move on to the budget, which is our last topic for this evening. The superintendent's proposed FY21 budget. I know there have been a lot of questions that have been given to you, Mr. Schweitzer, to talk about this evening. We asked all the board members to try to get their questions in so that you would have ample time to research those for this evening. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
Evening, let me get everything organized. Good evening. So the board, has had the draft budget book for a little bit of time now, and I do appreciate all of the questions that we received. This first slide is a reconciliation of the estimated or budgeted revenue that we're projecting for FY21. It's a snapshot of the overall changes. So the large additions and as well as the large subtractions. So the state aid number is primarily driven from the blueprint funds that were added in FY20. If you recall, when the board approved the FY20 budget, at that time, the blueprint funds that were approved in the 2019 legislative session were not clearly defined as restricted or unrestricted at that time. So it turned out that some of the pots were restricted, some of the pots were unrestricted, and through budget amendments, we have added them to the revised budget. So the large pluses to the revenue of $1.52 million of state aid is $1,138,435. Now, we had a question from Mr. Woods about the estimated receipts. Will the blueprint funding amount change if the veto is not overridden? So for FY21, the blueprint funds are set because in that 2019 legislative session, there were 2 years that they were allocated. So the veto affected FY22 revenue. So there is a change in the other local revenue from January to now. There is a $3,000 increase for interest. In the previous, estimates that we had provided the board, we had believed that our, interest would be higher, but unfortunately, the economic conditions have changed substantially. Our local maintenance of effort did increase $431,356, while our student population did decrease. So that was driven by the fact that, the county was forced to have the 2.5% escalator, which increased the funding amount per student. The decreases are in the designated facility funding. We discussed this a little bit last year in that QZAB was that program through the IAC was sunsetting. So those projects have been completed, and now we are left with only the aging schools projects going through that, that funding source. Then we do have the local prior year balance that we had discussed in January about a $600,000 amount in that area. And after discussion and understanding what the capital requirements that the board may be looking at, as well as the uncertainty about the blueprint revenue and out years, Mrs. Baker and I felt that it would be prudent to pull back some of that funding to reserve it in the fund balance, to save it for perhaps an operating budget that we needed it more direly, or for a capital project that the board would so choose. So I think Mr. Glassalchi had asked, he would like to have a little more discussion and clarity on the phasing out of the fund balance as a revenue source. And so for this fiscal year, we are recommending that we reduce it $115,000 from the $600,000, and have a further discussion as the board starts to plan their strategic facilities next steps. And then we can have, I would really suggest that we have a fund balance work session so that the board can really discuss, for a long range planning, what the fund balance, what their goals are, where they want to be. And again, at the June meeting, we will be bringing for approval the fund balance policy, and that's the first step in strategically planning that. So that's how we get to the overall revenue of $51,855,889 for the unrestricted operating budget. Okay, so here we have the categories outlined. There is an additional column that the board has not seen previously, and this is the revised revenue with the Little Kerwin, or the first phase that was SB 1030, so that you can see how we layered in that revenue and the expense during this fiscal year, and now we've gotten to the FY 2021. Now the year-over-year variance that you see is the FY 2021 estimated minus the approved, so that you do see that full variance. So included in the unrestricted from the Blueprint Fund are the students with disabilities and the teacher salary incentive grant. So that is a grant that we must apply for if we qualify through our negotiation process. but we haven't included that in this budget. The mental health coordinator, and the transitional supplemental instruction portions of Blueprint are restricted funds. So they are not in this unrestricted, budget detail. So, one of the changes between the funding that you see in the revised, from Blueprint into the estimated from the Blueprint is the fact that we have qualified for the declining enrollment, formula funding, as well as the supplemental pre-K shifted from being a regular formula funding into, Blueprint, it's categorized as Blueprint. So the state designated facility funding, we already discussed that. The other state and federal funding, that includes the non-public placement, revenue that we receive, the JROTC federal revenue that we receive, as well as transfers from other Maryland LEAs, should we have, a student that is attending our school. So here we've done the same reconciliation with the expenditures. So this chart also gives a big picture of the large additions or the large subtractions. So the increases of the $2,337,359. The first one is $100,000 for contractual increases. This year, that was primarily allocated to substitute line. Minimum wage is increasing for the next 3 years, January. And so in order to maintain a variance and attract and maintain qualified, quality substitutes and part-time help, it was the work of the cabinet to review our the rates in Appendix D. There was a large portion of that. $25,000 was also increased to the educational reimbursement, because as our workforce, as our teachers continue to retire and we're replacing them with younger, they're all working towards their master's or doctorate. So that expense has increased considerably. So the Blueprint funds that we added, again, the teacher incentive and the students with disabilities. We did add 2 positions with the funding from the Blueprint, and we did discuss that through the budget process last year. The mental health coordinator was one of them, and that funding is restricted, so you don't see that in here. And then the other one is the supervisor of special services. Now that person is funded, it's split by over 4 activities. So it's 25% in mid-level administration, 25% of pupil services, or 50% of pupil services, and 25% out of the special ed administration. So that was a position that we discussed during the budget process, but in last year's approved budget, it wasn't included because we didn't know at that time if it was going to be restricted or unrestricted. So through the budget amendment process, you will see that it's in there. So that was a question from a couple of the board members, Mr. Seabold, Mr. Woods, as well as Mr. Gladfelty. So the follow-up to that is the funding for that is paying for those 2 positions do sunset. It does sunset at the end of this fiscal year, and we are very aware of that. And so we are, through the budget process for FY22, we will be working on what that looks like. Again, we should learn more about what is going to happen with Blueprint as soon as the legislative session opens in January. We anticipate the information that we're receiving is that it'll move very quickly. So the COLA for goods and services of $86,000, that was across several categories: instructional licensing, field trips, and bus contractors, insurance, the lot rental, and trash removal, as well as workman's comp, all increased slightly, year over year. The compensation parameters is the placeholder that the board has approved for negotiation. And as we did last year, we followed the same methodology this year with the average. So it's not necessarily what the exact person will be making in each exact activity, because we haven't finalized negotiations yet. So the decrease that you see, the lap salary is $300,000. That is reduced across instruction, special education, pupil services, because there's been the greatest amount of turnover in those activities. So then there's the expenses that were deferred, or the state designated capital improvements, the $95,000, the revenue offsets the expenditure. Then the expenses deferred to FY 2022. That includes the maintenance vehicle, as well as furniture through operations. And then there is the remaining portion is IT equipment that we are planning to use one-time restricted funds to still purchase that amount and actually more IT devices, supplies, and licensing. However, we, through planning this one-time restricted funding, we worked it in with, we pulled it out of the operating and put it into the restricted funding.
Monica?
So you're saying, because that was a question I had, I seen we usually have money in for, like the cycle of, IT for devices. We have it for like desk and chairs, cafeteria tables, then we usually get either a mower or replace a vehicle. It's, been used as life expectancy. So we're not doing that, but you're saying that we're not doing it this year, we're deferring to the year 2022, but we're still gonna do it though, not as one-time supplemental needs for.
Well, right now, we're not doing the vehicle and we're not doing the furniture unless there's savings, positive budget variance throughout the year. So, possibly we will do it if we have enough electric savings. Like that's what we're trying to see where we could cut to budget, to balance the budget this year. And that was a place where Mr. Wazlowski looked at the fleet. He reviewed the comprehensive maintenance plan, and until we know exactly what we're doing until the board provides our clear plan of facilities, our furniture was okay. We're buying some furniture here at year end. We've rotated some things. So we think that we can go a year on those line items. Now the IT devices, now that's the place where we're still buying them. We're just using different funds to pay for them.
Did we get money though from the COVID-19, like the state, what was that, the grant, is that for devices?
It's called the CARES Act, and we can use it for devices, yes.
Have we received any finality on that? The amount of money that we would receive from the
Yes.
CARES Act?
Yes. there's multiple pieces, but the first piece that we've received, it's called ESSER, ESSER, I don't remember what it stands for, but it's $957,000 is what we were working on. And the application is due, the second week of June.
Is there reimbursement monies up to that amount? Is that how it works, or is that a one-time grant
It's a one-time grant.
to be used according to the needs of the county?
According to the allowable
Wow, I'm
cost,
sure they've got a
that's
list.
4 pages long.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we can find somewhere in those 4 pages to use it.
Does it tell you specifically items you need it for? Like, can it be for internet or devices, or is it like all technology related, or there's other fields?
It is the allowable cost page, I kid you not, is 4 pages long. It is just about anything other than the superintendent's salary. I mean, it is very broad and very open. We have been working to make sure that strategically we use this one-time money the most effective and efficient way to set ourselves up for success in the future. And there are some other possibilities for some reimbursement for other COVID expenses as well. And there's another piece of the CARES Act that could come through to us. And then there's a 4th piece of legislation called the HEROES Act. Yeah. So there's a whole, the revenue side of this COVID pandemic has honestly been the thing that I've been working on the most in the last 5 weeks.
When do you expect, you say there's a grant you have to apply for? What's the timeline on that grant in terms of expectation of when you receive word back, or you've already received?
According to the federal legislation, they have to approve it within 30 days. And the look-back period is back to the beginning of February, and it extends all the way through September of 2022.
Wow.
However, we're very hopeful that, you know, if we present a very comprehensive plan of how we, you know, it sounds like a tremendous amount of money. In the long run won't go as far as we hope. But there are a number of things to meet some summer goals, and then certainly I've spoken to the board about some of our concerns starting in the fall that we want to use it to address those as well. So it is our hope that we would certainly know and be able to start spending that.
When will you have that plan ready to give to the board to look at? I guess it's a question that we all 5 are wondering.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's due, we'll have it as quickly as we can, but it's a very short turnaround for us as well, and trying to get, and make sure that we're meeting all of the things that we feel are going to be necessary. And we don't know what all of those are going to
Sure,
be.
I understand. I think the point that Monica's making is a very valid point.
Sure, absolutely.
Let's just, take the elephant out of the room and say, what happens if we're in the same situation in September?
Right.
Where we're learning from home, maybe some kids are coming to school, maybe some kids are learning, remotely, whatever. I think, certainly, devices are something that's very important for our county right now. It'd be wonderful if we could say to every student in this county, if you have to learn from home, here's a nice modern device that you're gonna learn from.
That was the point I was getting to. But still, so many unknowns, uncertainties, what the governor will be saying, and Dr. Sam, when school starts, possibility might have to go in different shifts, or
Sure.
it would be good, especially our elementary. I don't believe it was offered, but they could have a device that they could bring back and forth. I mean, if it's something that they got to do.
I'm sure we're saying something you've already talked about.
Yes,
so,
you are. Yeah.
I'm sure we are.
Before you leave that page, I had a question. You said about you said the fiscal year 20 blueprint funds. You saying the 2 positions that were added, and then you said it's sunsetted in what year? Fiscal year 20.
At the end of this fiscal year. So it was only 2 years of funding.
So 2020 or 2021.
This is 2021, and it'll end at the end of this budget. So in the next budget cycle, we'll be discussing how to fund that.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I had the right year written down here.
And then we have budgetary cuts of $316,068. And that includes, 5 positions, it's 3 teachers and 2 instructional assistants.
Have you determined those places for those positions?
We have determined the places. So one, is a duty center teacher. Last year, the duty center grants were cut considerably. And in order to maintain their program, they asked us to absorb, one of their FTEs. So we did for a year. Through discussions with the lead team and, Mrs. Baker has decided that that FTE is better served as a pre-K teacher. We did discuss that with the duty center, and they completely understand. They were grateful that for a year they could step down their program in a more planned manner. So that's one teacher. Then the other 2 teachers, one is from Northern Middle and one is at Southern Middle. When we look at the enrollment trends, we have like a breaking point at this year's 6th grade class. The class sizes, not each class, but the overall class size of 6th grade and down plateaus to a smaller level. And it's a very sustained smaller level. We do have 2 classes that look up, but according to the data that we have in the enrollment trends, both Northern and Southern Middle School will be seeing the largest decline as this grade move through. And so it starts with this year's 6th grade, which will be 7th grade in this budget cycle. And then, so the current 5th grade class that is moving to 6th grade is quite small.
Both ends of the county?
Yeah. It's like you can draw a line in your enrollment and see that it just starts to get, the classes are smaller, and we've had sustained number of smaller overall kindergarten enrollment. So, also elementary, we feel is right-sized. Most of there have been some steep cuts at elementary and secondary as well. Mr. Edwards worked with us, worked with the whole team, as well as his principals at the 2 high schools. And we feel that for right now, until those current 6th graders move up, the high school staffing is right-sized as well. So with losing 34 students, while it is system-wide, we still had to look at trends to see where that was going to. None of them are the tested content area.
I believe so. Yeah.
So
there was one consideration that was,
right,
but we decided not to make a cut there at Southern Middle. Decided to leave that in. Try and
those
find it in a
principals
different area.
have been part of the discussion long.
Yes.
Since we had their first budget meeting, they understood this.
And have scheduled accordingly.
And instructional assistants are from where?
So there's one from Southern High School, and the other one is from Yacht Glade.
How did you derive that decision?
They were both I want to say overstaffed, but they had more.
The ratio. We
the ratio. So across the county, each kindergarten has half of an IA. So at Broadford, there are 2 IAs assigned to kindergarten. Now, there's a pre-K IA for every pre-K class. But then some of the smaller schools that just have singleton classes, the IA floats up to 1st and 2nd grade to help with those classes. So, Yawgley's, through attrition, we had been working towards getting to that ratio. And so, there was a separation of service, and so, and that was another, conversation that we had very openly for, about a year and a half with that principal, that if there was any movement in those IAs, that would be the possibility.
Monica?
To understand, I understand what all that you said for, but northern middle school and southern middle school, like, so we're not eliminating anything, a program or,
No.
it's just a teacher, you can't really say, like, is it math, science, like, I'm just trying to, like, we have more, but you might have more kids in the classroom, is that what you'll do? I'm just trying to understand, if we eliminate a
There may
position.
be, but you have to remember that there is a smaller class coming in than what Southern Middle has ever had.
Well, I was just looking at that, the numbers.
So,
Right, and what we've done, and the reason it makes it difficult to understand exactly, we have allowed, as you can certainly understand, the principal the autonomy to kind of look at their schedule, look at their staffing, and try and make some determinations. If we had to make a reduction, the best area to maintain every program, as you've said, Mrs. Drinker, and have the least amount of impact to the core areas, as Mrs. Schweitzer has said, and try and keep class sizes you know, as manageable as possible. There have been times when we have looked at middle school and not ultimately made the reduction, but we have continued with the reduction at both elementary and high school, and because we did have to make a significant reduction, that's where we came up with the other two, and as I said, both principals have scheduled accordingly, but no programs have been discontinued as a result of either one of the reductions.
Okay.
so then the other cuts, that make up that $316,000, Mr. Edwards did review the amount of, secondary funds that he, centrally was able to allocate. And, 31,000 of that was actually cut, and he made those decisions. We cut $15,000 worth of reimbursable mileage and expense throughout the system, and we also cut $20,000 from professional development.
What's the reallocated to school allocation? That's
So, remember we discussed at the other May, the real May board meeting.
yeah.
Like this isn't a real board meeting, but, so the other board meeting that we had earlier in the month, we discussed the concept that the principal's allocation increased.
Going up. Okay.
They had received more per pupil. They had received PBIS funds. Some of them have received an increase to their SIT allocation depending on their staffing. And we had also allocated, based upon their staff, an amount of staff development funds for them. And the idea behind that was they have to plan and execute a SIT plan. So they were saying that they needed resources to be able to do that. So in order to do that, Mr. Edwards was able to cut from some of the funding that he oversaw in order to make that possible.
That's where you're talking about supplies and materials, correct? With the increase? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
No, okay. The SIT and all that, okay, that falls under something else, okay.
So those are the cuts. Okay, so here we have, by category. What the, summary looks like. So, it gives a side-by-side comparison of last year's FY20 budget and this year's. The largest changes by percentage is administration. there are two factors that are driving that increase. It's $172,000. The largest portion of that is that a $90,000 piece of unused sick needed to be reclassified from fixed charges to administration. This is a process that we do every single year, and our auditors had explained that we were a bit inconsistent if we continue to budget in fixed charges, but we reported on our annual report in administration. So it appears that we've overspent in administration every single year. So we did move that. The second part of that is that our indirect cost rate decreased. Our indirect cost is the rate that we are allowed to basically charge restricted grants for processing them. So that is found on page 24 in the business support service. And so that amount had been a negative 135, and now it's only a negative 93. It decreased. So that negatively affected administration too. So those are the two key drivers. There's also a placeholder for negotiation. Mid-level instruction, that also increased, and that was due to the fact that there was that 25% of a position, as well as there's no lapse salary that was able to be taken out of either administration or mid-level administration through any of the staff changes that we've had. So instruction, special ed, and pupil services, as I said before, is where the reduction due to lapse salary is occurring. So that's why they're staying more smooth, if you will, with the variance. Fixed charges, there's a 4% increase there. Remember the increase to the insurance, the health insurance and the workman's comp is offset by the decrease of the 90,000 that's moved. So if the 90,000 had been there, it would have been a higher percentage.
0.4%. You said 4%.
No, it was 4%. The increase, like year over year overall, not just the 90,000.
I'm sorry, I was looking at your fixed charges costs. I'd gone to the bottom, where you have fixed charges, 22.4 to 22.8.
So those are the highlights from that.
May I? I believe that Mrs. People had expressed a question or concern about the administration, and it is an increase. Want to make sure that we let the public know and reassure the board. Of course, you would approve them, but there have been no additional, other than what Mrs. Schweitzer has already outlined as the 2 positions that were added, but no additional administrative positions have been added for the approved 2020 to the proposed 2021, even though it does have a substantial increase. But we did feel like, because the auditors were saying to us we had those dollars in the wrong place, and we really needed to put them there, it does reflect a larger increase than, it is not a significant additional spending. It is just moved to the category in which the auditors, it's better placed. Yeah. But there are no additional positions included that would have raised that administration so much.
It just seems to me, it just seems odd having it there, because it seems to me that it is kind of a fixed charge. It's something that we owe people, just like the other things we have in fixed charges. And to have it in administration just floats that figure to look like.
Sure. Yeah.
You're right. And then most of that is salary. Then that's what people think the increase would be, the 12% that it shows there.
Right.
But anyway, that's where I saw that we had it in like 2 years ago, and then we took it out, and then we put it back in this year. So That was, I was wondering,
Yeah. As I think we had the same concern then. But then it does reflect as a line item that's overspent when the auditors do their, report and I guess coming up relatively soon.
explain that to me. I don't understand the being overspent.
I should probably said overspent.
Well, so what happens is it's budgeted in fixed charges,
Okay.
but then it's spent out of administration. So we do a budget amendment every year to move the amount. So if you look at your approved budget and then you look at your report, your financial report, every year you've got $90,000 in fixed charges that you're not going to spend. So it looks like your overall variance is
Well, it looks like you put it in the wrong place if you're just looking at it. I mean, it would to me, if every year you've got to take it out of this pot of money to pay for this part that you overspent, why wouldn't you have it in the part that you're going to have to spend it from, which I guess is what the auditors are trying to say. If it's administrative, put the money in there, spend it from there, and then you don't show that you are over in one category and under in another category.
And according to the GASB standards and the MSD financial manual, unused sick leave isn't categorized as a fixed charge. So that's why it has to be reported where it's reported. And, well, this year it'll look wonky because it won't be consistent, but next year it'll be consistent, and so you won't see that portion of the variance.
Right, but it is not an additional position in administration, which I understand your concern.
Well, and it's compounded with the indirect cost rate decrease of that $43,000. That's a lot of money too. So right there, if you're talking about 170,000, that's 130 of it. So
yeah. Thank you.
Well, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Sure.
12%.
Monica?
So like you were saying, Ms. Baker, those two positions, mental health coordinator and supervisor of special services, they would be under the administration? Is that where they
No.
mid-level?
No. Well, when I said there are no new positions,
Right.
the positions that Mrs. Schweitzer is referring to are not there because those were restricted funds.
Okay, so
And remember, they're going to be paid out of restricted for this coming budget.
okay.
Next year, we would have to work them in someplace.
So right now, they're not reflected at all in the budget, just to make sure.
It's not in the
Restricted section, just in the
well,
restricted.
the mental health coordinator is in the restricted, but the supervisor of special services is 25% out of mid-level
Okay, yeah,
administration,
20.
50% out of pupil services, and 25% out of special ed admin.
It's in 3 different categories, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we have this pretty chart, lots of color, and then we have the summary by object, to provide a side-by-side. So salaries, there was a overall 3%. That is a combination of the placeholder for negotiation, the contractual increases, as well as the reduction of the 5 positions. Supplies and materials is at a plus 24%, and that is primarily the reading, elementary reading theory. Equipment is down 43%, and that is because we're deferring some of that vehicle, as well as Mr. Edwards did reallocate from some of his equipment line. Fixed charges is the exact same as the last chart. And then transfers, that's where you're going to see the indirect cost change. So transfers increased by $43,300, and that's because we can't charge as much, or the rate changed. So
I have a question to make sure. When we see the fixed charges on your chart, it was 22.4%, now it's 22.8%, so it's went up like 0.4%. So we took out the 90,000, right, that was in there for unused sick, and it's reclassified. Is that correct?
yeah.
So what would what did we put in their ad to make the 4% go up?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay.
So then here's a summary of the deferred expenses and the budgetary cuts. So, again, we already discussed that it's the maintenance vehicle and the furniture for $106,000. I didn't make it red because next year we do intend to.
I wondered
replace-
why you used two colors. I couldn't figure that out.
So we intend to pull it back in, and we'll have a placeholder for a vehicle, as well as the furniture. The IT devices and supplies and equipment, that is, we intend to use restricted funds for those for 1 year. The instructional position came to $250,000. The secondary instruction, Mr. Edwards did remove $55,000 from his allocation as director of secondary. $31,068 was actually cut, was eliminated completely, and that's why it's red. The $22,932 was reallocated for the principal's allocation. Other cuts were the professional development of $20,000 and the reimbursable expenses of $15,000. So what I'd like to do now is go through discuss the questions that the board members had requested. So, Mr. Woods had inquired why the increase for substitutes in human resources, 162, it's page 29. And so there is a $10,000 increase. That's a confidential clerical substitute that is working in the HR office. And there's the culmination of the increase in the rate, as well as there's a need for more time for her to work a little bit more. So Mr. Woods also had inquired from Activity 181, which is Office of the Principal, on page 33, what are the $2,000 stipends for? So the $2,000 stipends last year were used when there was a mid-year separation of service at Southern High School in order to pay an administrator who substituted for the second part of the year. In this fiscal year and next fiscal year, it has been used and is planned to be used for what we call a secretary boot camp. And it's a day that we pull all the secretaries to refresh their training in units, refresh any kind of HR laws that have changed, and
some of the registrar information
yes,
changes.
Yes, people services, meets with them. So we pull them together. It's a professional development for the secretary.
Okay.
Okay. On page 45, Mrs. Seabold asked, this is English Language Arts, is the $250,000 for the new reading series? What is the total cost for this series? So the $250,000 is for the reading series. The total purchase price over 3 years is $660,000. In this current fiscal year, before the end, before 6/30, we are purchasing $85,000 through some of the savings that we're achieving through professional development and some of the other planned things that didn't happen. So in FY21, you see the $250,000 placeholder, and then we're anticipating that in FY22, it would be $325,000. We are looking at some restricted opportunities to cover some of that too. So, then on page 59, Mr. Blackfeldy had a question about social studies, economics, and financial literacy. So was the staff reduction in 221 related to National History Day expenses or the social studies program in general? Was this staff position transferred, or did we actually eliminate the position? So this is one of the places where we eliminated a position at this time based on the information we have. If the principals come back and this isn't where their cut is made, then we will do a budget transfer. It is not affecting any programming, we're not cutting anything. And it has in no way related to National History Day. On page 65, Mr. Glepelski also had a question about which school was impacted by this cut. Was it possibly due to reduced enrollment? So the cuts that you see here are the Judy Center teacher. You also see the two IAs were coded here. So that's Younglades and Southern High School, and then the Judy Center teacher was across 3 different schools.
Can I ask a question for you, Ellen? We were just talking about the textbooks. I had the same question that Ms. Seabold had, and you explained how so much from this year, the following year, 2021, 3 years in a row, to complete the K through 5 or reading series.
Pre-K.
Pre-K, yeah. When I look at page 64, 65, my question was, this is in, it says majority of elementary general instruction expenses. We have one here, textbook media, textbook replacement cycle, and then we have $107,000.
Right.
So what is that for?
So there's $35,000 for the elementary consumables, and that's for various materials that they buy every year, they use up, and we have to buy every year. The $70,000 is for our, probably shouldn't be called textbook replacement. It should probably be called resource replacement, because we have a whole chart of which license or which resource is coming due to review again. And so a lot of them are very, very small purchases. Like we did Spanish this year. We did, we did 3 different things with the $70,000. And they're normally very, like, I don't want to say small programs, but
where we may need a classroom set, or we may need a few to fill in an area where it's not like the reading purchase that is a major purchase over a number of years. And I think one thing as we start looking at next year or continuing through this year, a lot of what we are going to be looking at are, as Mrs. Schweitzer said, resource replacement cycles. We can't continue to replace textbooks and our tech materials. We're going to have to start moving towards a platform that we can use what we have, and then moving towards the purchase of resources, not necessarily always a textbook. And I think, as you said, Mr. Woods, that, as we're moving towards a platform for summer and what we will be part of our recovery plan for the fall, we may have to adjust those resource schedules somewhat. But those are, Mrs. Schweitzer is correct. A lot of those are for some of our smaller programs that we do need to refresh the resources. That isn't as major of a purchase as a math resource.
And the reason it's here in 229 is because when we were getting to the point where, is it going to be AP Psychology this year, or are you happy with it for one more year? There wasn't certainty at that point. So we placed it in 229 knowing that there are going to be 2 or 3 different resource things that come up. If they don't come up this year, they're coming up next year. They might switch places, but we do know of several of them.
So that's something that kind of what I do is just keep that amount of money enter every year for whatever.
For those.
And we have, for 4 years, we've had 70,000 for textbook refresh. And when we've been able to really get on a cycle to make sure that we're able to replace it. Okay, so on the next page, page 67, Mr. Woods, had a question or recommendation to raise the equipment under, under 5,000 by 2,000. So the, where it says 7.5K each high school, he was making a recommendation to increase it by 2,000, so I'm assuming 1,000 per school.
I didn't finish my sentence in my question. I put cents in it, and then I said it before I actually looked up my information. I can't recall when we increased that. And as you well know, every year costs
Sure.
go up a lot, especially when you're buying equipment for football players, especially. I mean, helmets are $200 and some a piece now.
We have been increasing it because of the fact, that the stuff was, was
Yeah.
aging. So
Sure.
that is up from,
Well, it's been 15 last 3 years,
well.
so I don't know
I
what it
think it
was
might have
before
been
then.
10. was
Yeah,
thinking
I think it was 10,
or 12.
And then we raised,
Um,
I'm pretty sure it's been raised, last few years.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the last 3, but
Again, I didn't know how far back since
because of the
was.
concussion thing and the
Yeah,
safety,
yeah.
making sure you have the helmet.
Yeah.
So,
reconditioned and purchased
for me to remember that, it wasn't too long ago.
For you to even know, it's pretty impressive, actually. A lot of women don't know those terms.
Well, and I didn't know how you wanted to address that. Do you want to answer all the questions and then make adjustments?
Yeah, I think that'd be the best way to do it. I think we go through all the questions that were given to you. If there are any adjustments that need to be made, the board feels that that is an adjustment they want to make, then we'll do that.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, so then the next page on 272, which is school improvement.
Can I ask one question to
Sure.
go back? I have something circled here. I did notice that the year before, equipment over, 5,000, $21,650 were spent that were not budgeted. Do you by any chance remember what was bought with that?
I would have to look. But you can see he used the whole 15,000 to cover that. Like,
Right.
that's,
It only went over by 6,000 because it was just line items and it was budgeted under 5 and we
Right.
spent it in over 5, but it was only overspent by 6,000.
and his supply.
We would have to find out for you
Right.
exactly what that purchase
And
was.
that moved it down to the line below.
Right,
It
exactly.
went over the 15.
Yeah, so it wasn't
Over
like we
the
spent the
5.
15 and then another 21.
Right.
Yeah, but we would have to check on that for you.
Okay.
Well, and again, this is the FY20, it's not
Right.
final yet.
That's
So,
true, this is as of-
depending, this was at 12/31/19, so he may not have done his budget amendment at that point, I mean,
True.
so,
We might have gotten some.
Might have. I was over 5,000.
We'll have to check.
That'd have to be a large piece of equipment over $5,000.
okay, one thing over
Right.
5,000.
That's what I'm saying. That's a fairly large piece of
Oh,
equipment.
it's one,
It probably
It's one
is.
thing.
One thing.
It's what, what'd you say?
But we'll
It could be
check on
one
that
thing
for you.
over 5,000, I don't think helmets are that.
No, not yet. Hey, listen, things are going up, that's for
I will check on that for you, Mr. Peterson.
Monica.
Well, since we're there and should have question, odd one. Like our contracts for spring and fall sports, does that go under stipends, teachers? Is that where that would show up?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. I thought that's where it was.
Okay, so then now on to the next page, page 69. Mr. Woods was asking about the teacher stipend. Could the extra summer professional day not be used for SIP planning and thus not spend stipend money? So, as you can see, all of this money is under the school allocation column. So these are the funds that the principal has as their resource to be able to plan and execute their SIP plan. So some of them do it, they all do it very differently, but, some of them pay for substitutes. You can see there's $13,000 in substitutes that they pay to be able to work, at different times. And then some have after-school meetings or have, meetings after school's out or before school starts. They all do it a little bit differently. But that is something that we've left up to the autonomy of the principal.
But the stipend wouldn't, correct me if I'm wrong, the stipend would be working outside the duty day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Summer months.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my reference back to that was, if we're gonna give one more day of staff development in the summer from our calendar, we have that extra day now that we're using, it would seem to me that that would be the perfect day for principals throughout the county to use as a sit development day, thus saving some of that money that could be used, compute laptops, things of that nature. As principal, I know that's what I would want to do. You've got a captive audience.
Right.
They're there. You need to work on your SIP plan. It's the perfect time to do that. And the money could be used, in my mind, on things that we desperately need right now.
Well, we had talked about that, and one thing, those first days back are highly requested by both principals for those very reasons and for our work at Central Office of Staff Development that we want, and need to do. It's very different at the elementary school on that day. There's and it's also sometimes difficult to get your parent rep that day to get all of the work done that day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could consider keeping part of it there, especially for the elementary principals to use, and then moving some of it to your laptop suggestion. I would hate to move all of it just because of that extra day, because, as you know, the school improvement plan is, it's not a one and done. They have to keep working on it throughout the school year, and I think, they really do appreciate that autonomy to be able to, use that money to pay some after-school stipends and some other things for staff that, they can't use, something at the high school, maybe a department chair or something that could be on the team. It would be somebody that would, wanted to continue to teach all day and then do an after-school meeting or something, a later meeting. Just, they do appreciate that autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really been overspent. I mean, it's been.
Which page are we on?
We're on page 69. Like we approved 5,008, they spent 14,900 in 19, and then in 20, we said 5,000, and 13 has already been spent at 12/31. So, not just that that's being spent, it's being doubled.
Yeah,
Well, but if you look at the total salary for FY19, the approved was $24,405. The spent was $25,860. So if you take out the revised column,
So you're saying that they use stipend they use substitute money for stipend?
They could use both if they wanted to get a substitute and do some meetings during the day, or do a stipend and do some meetings in the evening. They could do either. That's where they have some autonomy to run their meeting that way.
So who gets paid after school? After the 7.5 hours, who gets paid by stipend? Does the principal get paid? The principal stays at 4 o'clock and works till 5 o'clock?
the principal wouldn't be paid.
No.
No, okay.
No, the only place you would see a principal stipend is up in 181, and we already talked about that one.
Yeah, right. I'm just trying to figure, so you're only talking about teachers
No, this would be
that
teachers.
you'd be paying. And is there a time allotment that, 1 hour? If they turn that in,
Well,
we're
it's
gonna pay for 1 hour?
$30 per hour.
I'm saying they could do 1 hour and
Mhm.
turn that in as something for their sit team.
Yeah, they have contracts. So we know in payroll who to expect. They can't just have they have a contract for it, and we check the contract.
Yeah, and we revised that 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years ago. It used to be half a day or a full day, and then
Right,
we
and
tried
now
to
we
break
make
it up
it-
into increments.
Right, we'll pay them an hourly.
If that's used in the summer, that stipend is used in the summer, everybody who's in the workshop, do they get paid?
If they don't have extra days that they're using, you know, like, if the guidance counselor that has 10 extra days and they want to use one of their days, then they wouldn't get paid.
If they don't use one of their days, they would get paid.
$30 per hour is the negotiated rate.
I don't know, it's the side of me that says that, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Barb. We need to leave some money in for autonomy use, but, you know, part of the deal with the calendar committee thing was to get that extra day in the summer, use that day for things that we could really be needed for. I personally think that's a great day.
Oh, it is.
To
You're
work
absolutely
on
right.
your
It's a
school
great
improvement
day to work
plan.
on a school improvement
Plan.
plan. Yep, you have all your
You
folks
have
there.
everybody there, and if you've worked on some during the summer, use some of your stipend money to work on during the summer. That's wonderful, but then you have a plan to present to everyone to use.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a 3-hour meeting, that's all it is.
Yeah.
You do it in the morning, and everybody understands what the plan is, what their role is. You execute the plan, but we'll talk about it later, you know, when we come back.
I guess each school, then the principal has designated, a teacher or staff to be on the SIP team, correct? Yes, already designated.
Several, depending on the size of the school.
So then the next question is on page 80. It's also from Mr. Wood. Is why are no general supplies for pre-kindergarten? So pre-kindergarten was, this is a timing thing because we only learned that we needed to pull it out as its own activity, maybe a month before this book came out. So it was after we had collected the allocations from the principals. So I am certain, are spending money on kindergarten or pre-K, but it wasn't coded that way. So there will be funds that are transferred into this. And then next year on the principal's budget allocation worksheet, there will be a 233 for them to allocate specifically to pre-K.
Yeah, it sounded kind of peculiar, we
Yeah,
have
I know.
a program, but we don't give them anything to.
No, they,
I knew they've got things,
Yeah,
but I couldn't figure out
that's why.
how we're doing.
yeah, that's why. Just as there's no designation for grade 1 or grade 2, the principal allocates, and that's usually that is a big one with the, things that need refreshed every year for kindergarten.
I have a question pertaining to just general supplies in general. I noticed that through, the budget book, in a lot of categories, there was, they were cut. Like on one, it was $4,000. No, $4,000 the same, sorry. In one, it was art, for example, had $1,250 less for supplies and materials. Math, $3,500. Then I did see, then on page 64, 65, the instructional regular programs, you increased your supplies by $32,763. So I'm just trying to understand.
Remember, Mr. Edwards cut $55,000 worth of expense that were only allocated to secondary. So all those cuts are all those changes are what you're seeing. So $23,000 of it was reallocated to somewhere in a school allocation column. But 1,000 is actually cut. And that was, Mr. Edwards did it. He analyzed it. He felt that the cuts were no problem.
And he's always had some additional autonomy that the director of elementary does not have. There are no discretionary funds in science for the elementary program, just the secondary. And so that is why we asked Mr. Edwards to make some of those cuts to make it a little bit more equitable The principals got an increase in their allocation, and they can certainly use that. One year they may use it on media, the next year they may need science materials. But they will have the autonomy to use that where they feel it's best needed in their building.
Okay, so the increase I did see that also on page 64, 65 is actually for elementary. So elementary, the instructional regular programs is what the, for the supplies. General supplies, on page 64 and 65, it did see an increase, but that's elementary. For these ones that I was questioning you about, it was all a decrease in secondary schools. So then I totaled up of like what I was looking at, the how much less, and then the regular programs. So you're saying that some of the money was allocated, like the principals actually are getting a little bit more, and then they can disperse it.
They're getting a lot more this year. They're getting a lot more this year. So they're getting more in their supplies and materials as their per student, but they're also getting more to be able to do their SIT plan, to run their PBIS program, and to have staff development. But in order to be able to give them those resources, we had to be able to reallocate from somewhere. Okay, so on page 85, there's two questions. So the first one from Mr. Glassfelty, will transferring the behavioral intervention funds from the central office to school principals change the accountability for use of the funds? And Mrs. Baker and I we weren't exactly sure what the question was asking. However, we do know the reason that we created an allocation for behavior intervention is because the principals are expected to run a PBIS program in their schools, and they told us they need resources to be able to do that. They have to meet to review the data. They need to do, Mrs. DeVore could talk about it a whole lot better than I can, but there were specific things that they had to do to be able to achieve the gold standard in the PBIS world. And so we did our best to provide them the resources to be able to work with their staff and analyze the data and work on behavior in their schools. So I guess we're basically saying, principals, here you go. Now, you know.
I believe the first year, or the first 2 years, when that was one of the big three, when PBIS was one of the big three, we did find some grant money that we were able to allot to the principals to meet some of the goals for PBIS. That money, of course, is no longer being able to be spent for PBIS, but we still continue it as an initiative because of the positive behavior support. So I wasn't sure either, Mr. Glassfeldy, exactly what you meant by the accountability piece, but certainly they will need to use those funds to continue to meet their PBIS goals at each school. Does that answer your question? Are you still there?
They're probably on mute.
Probably, because we all made them mute, so. Well, maybe we can come, maybe. I'm hoping that answers it. If not, we can answer it. We can try to answer it further in June if he's still not sure.
Absolutely. And so then the second question was from.
I'm sorry.
There he is.
There you are.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Question answered?
yeah, I think so. I was just asking the question, since the transfer of money was going from central office to the principals to, for use in behavioral issues, that the accountability is still going to be there for the use of those funds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
thanks.
definitely. Thank you.
Okay, so then the second question from Mr. Woods is the consultant fee for STARS. I oppose spending money for a consultant. I'm in favor of using the $9,131 to purchase iBooks for elementary schools. So this is a portion, this is only a the unrestricted portion of what we do pay, Dr. Kate Mitchum to help us when we have very challenging, either transition or, and Dr. Mangus can speak a little bit better about this, but, she's only used it on an as-needed basis,
Right,
based
it's,
upon
yeah,
the
it's not like she's
student.
contracted to just do staff development or contracted to just work with some principal.
Page 85.
84, 85.
45.
Yeah, she's from she might even, she's come to present to the board on several occasions, when we were talking about our STARS data and our, behavior support data. She does, we do contract with her, and she will do a very intensive observation, behavior plan, working with everyone that, we've talked about, everybody that works with that student, making sure that they are involved in the plan. So that is what that consulting piece, has been.
Well, I suspected that's what it was for. I guess I just take the position that if we're gonna have the program, we need to learn to do it ourselves. We don't need somebody coming from Cal State to tell us how to do it. To me, if it's a first-year program, sure, you need consultants. If it's a second-year program, maybe you still need that helping hand. But there comes a point in time where we need to do it ourselves. We talked a lot, and we weren't able to do it this year, of hiring a position, a behavior position. We have a mental health coordinator now that we have to help with some of our needs. We have a special projects person to help with some of our needs. I can buy 30 iBooks for that $9,000, and I personally feel like we need to do that this year. That's our greatest need this year, is to try to get as many things into the hands of our kids this fall as we can, because I'm of the belief we're going to need those things.
Oh, I agree. Dr. Mangus is on the call, if she would like to speak to that, if possible.
Sure.
I do need to say, some people are trying to chime in,
Yeah,
but it's giving them technical issues. It's saying that because of the number of people on the call, they
Yeah.
are automatically muted.
Yeah.
sometimes they have to do the *6 to unmute, but if Dr. Mangus, if you can unmute, and, is that okay, Mr. Murphy?
Sure, whatever.
Yeah. If Dr. Mangus,
The largest portion, this is like just a small allocation that we keep because we normally pay for it out of restricted funds.
Sure.
But in order to meet maintenance of effort, you have to show that you're using a portion of your unrestricted as well as using restricted. So.
Is that portion a goodwill offering, or is it a formula? I mean, what's you say make
Well,
effort?
it depends on the grant person, because you like give them a grid of what the grant's gonna pay for, and then what we say our in-kind's gonna be, and if they don't feel that it's enough, then they
say no.
hand it back to you and say try again. But
yeah,
you'll see that this year, where we spent $77.75 by 12/31, we actually moved most of it out to a restricted grant, and we've reallocated the rest of it to pay for devices.
She's waiting with Allison.
Yeah. How much would the restricted part of that have been?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know. Chelsea will. Dr. Mangus will know.
Yeah. I'm trying to visualize what is the total amount of money we're paying for that consultant fee, and I understand. I mean, to me, it's a matter of what is our priority at the moment. And at the moment, I think I have all the confidence in the world that Dr. Mangus and the staff that work with her can figure out any problem. I have that belief.
And the other thing is, we were in a weird place where we had 4 people going through a BCBA cohort, but none of them had passed the test yet. Well, now we have 2.
we do.
We have 2
yes.
BCBA professionals, and so we are working to work her out. But there comes certain times, I guess, that.
Well,
Yeah, I think she is waiting.
Okay.
We could give her, are you there?
Dr. Mangus?
Hopefully,
That's not going.
maybe not.
If she can't get on, we can come back to it.
Okay.
That's fine. I don't wanna hold up any longer than we have to, but, you know, that's just my feelings. Go ahead, Mark.
Quick question, what you just asking. Where do we actually find, what, activity would our STARS program be under?
It's in this
It
activity.
says, okay,
Yeah.
okay, behavior.
Is it
Is
on?
this all STARS?
Can people
So
not
we
hear
talked to
us
Rodney,
now?
so I assume it's on.
It's still plugged in.
Yeah, it looks like it's, I mean, we just talked to Rodney, so it must be working.
It's lit up in green.
So Allison, all of the STARS is in this, correct? In our, behavioral instruction intervention?
Mhm.
What else is under that category?
Behavior coaches.
Uh-huh. So basically, those two are the main items in here then.
Mhm.
And I'm told we now have 3. I guess we had somebody else that passed their exam as well.
Oh,
So
good.
I think that goes more to Mr. Woods' point of
Yeah.
more
we're-
actually support you.
Yeah, we're very, we're ready to fly.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We're gonna have to fly sooner or later, we may as well fly now.
Okay, so on page 106,
106, you said.
yes, 106, that's the instructional staff development. So, Mr. Woods had another question. Who are the consultants that we pay up to $12,800? I think we should cut conventions totally out of the budget this year and use the money for laptops. So, as you can see, a portion of this the staff development is under, school allocation, and 2,800 of that is being planned by the principals, and so I can't speak of what their plan is. The amount was cut, from central office base by 5,000 this year. And then the one thing that I would like to, kind of explain about conventions is that even if it's online training, it gets coded to convention because it's not a dues and fee, so it's a convention. So like all of my GFOA updates and
Sure.
training, they go through the convention line.
Yeah, that
So I'm not really going anywhere.
Right.
So that's, obviously we need to look at those expenses and make sure that what we're doing follows the mission and vision and,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I can visualize there'll be very few on-site conventions happening this fall, anywhere that anybody would want to go.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't want to go, and I think most people are probably like me. Why would you want to take the risk of going somewhere like that? And I assume that's probably what was happening. And I guess in my mind, all I was trying to do was trying to find money that we could, that we could spend to things I think we're really gonna need this fall. Anywhere I could find.
Well, and I think we might have a better idea that we can come, and you can certainly make the motion this evening if you want to move it before the June meeting, but we might have a better idea for you at the June meeting of exactly what our ESSER plan and how we intend to plan for the summer, how we plan to spend for the fall. That you're absolutely right, but I'm also very worried about what we're going to need for behavior in the fall as well, because we have students that are going to be home for months and come back with gaps, and it's very scary to me when we do start back in the fall. Some of the things that we could easily be facing with our kids. I will say, Dr. Mangus just replied, and she said that we had to have Dr. Mitchum supervise because she was a BCBA. So we had to have her supervising the other people that were working towards their BCBA. So now that we have 3 and we have 1 more that we're hoping will pass, and then we do plan to phase that particular consultant. I think she's moving anyway, but we will now have our own BCBAs, and they can then they can hopefully support and supervise other folks if they want to move towards their BCBA, so we won't need that consultant
So
position.
the three BCAs could supervise the one
As
person.
other, right, and then others that may want to,
So in fact, we would
program
not,
as well.
So why would we pay that? Because we're doing tuition?
Well, we had to have somebody supervise them, I think.
Wouldn't their school that they're going to have to
Possibly.
have that?
I'm just
I
reading
mean,
what they
why-
said.
I would think. I mean, I would think, it would
Yeah.
make sense.
But they also may have requirements that, you know, that have to be done during their workday that may not be part of the program. I'm not sure of all of what the supervision requirements are. If she lets me know that, I can.
Okay, well, I mean, it seems like if they were, that would be part of their tuition, part of their schooling, if they're
Right.
going.
Right,
for
and
degree.
a lot of it, as Mrs. Huckwaiter said, was grant funded as well. There's just a small portion of it that was paid out of operating, but we are building our own capacity, which is good.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we are going to need a number of, like you said, a lot of devices and things. But I know we will know more at the June
Is that a
meeting.
competitive grant, a bid grant? I mean, do you bid that out as a grant or? The other restricted piece. You said there was two pieces to that consultant's fee. There was the unrestricted,
No,
restricted.
when Heather was here, she had written a multi-year grant to get that cohort
Uh-huh.
through.
Sure, right.
And it paid for the BCBA
Mhm.
oversight, it paid for the whole thing. And so there's
Is that grant still in
small
effect
pieces that we have
No,
to
I
pay
think-
for out of the unrestricted.
as the grant expired?
I think the grant
Yes,
is.
the grant has expired, there was a second grant that covers the next portion of it.
Mhm.
And now the cohort is done, so, you know.
So that's all?
So it's just a different thing now.
No, that's not, I think I know what I want to do.
Okay.
So then on page 135,
Mhm.
Mrs. Siebold had a question about, the health services, the increase in admin certificated. So there were two adjustments that happened here. Remember, in the March board meeting, just a couple months ago, we had the budget transfer of $40,000 to cover the amount, the salary. Because remember, we've done an average because we're not at tentative agreement yet. So we have to go back and adjust to make sure that we align. While the whole salary has increased the amount, it may not be in the exact right place. So that was a place where we had to add the $40,000 that we transferred in this fiscal year, plus the negotiated placeholder, or the placeholder for negotiation. There was no less salary applied to health services. We didn't have any change in staff.
But the $44,744 increase in the salary line was because of,
The $40,000 that we transferred in March was the first adjustment, because that was taking care of this year's change that needed to happen. And then the rest is the negotiated agreement placeholder.
we're talking about next year. We're talking about FY21. The 40 was to increase it this year.
We had to move the 40,000.
Okay.
Basically, all the budget amendments that you have approved so far this year are in this FY21. They were done to this budget first. And then we started doing the other things because they were all salary changes that they weren't increasing anything. They were just moving to where the funds needed to be.
Okay, so that would be like a revise next year.
Exactly.
Okay.
You'll see it in the revised number.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I have one question, that just came to me. So when you look back the only time we ever know what was actually spent is 2 years late. I mean, like now we're looking back and in FY19, we see, what was actually spent in the lines. So when do you ever ask questions about that? I mean, when
When the rural behavior group is here, that's when we do our financial, like, that's when we do.
so that, at that point, we don't really have it laid out like this, but what you're saying is that at that point is when we find out what was really spent under
Yeah, the
individual item.
well, we don't do it individually, but you get it by category.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so,
Miss Baker, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yep, thank you.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
The only thing I was going to chime in, I'm sorry to jump backwards, was exactly what I had sent to Miss Baker in a message, and that was just that we had hired Dr. Mitchum to supervise our upcoming BCBAs, and that's because they require 1,500 hours of supervision to get their certification. So she was a BCBA that was already certified that could provide that supervision. So that's why Ms. Raybold had her coming into contract with it, but I absolutely agree with Mr. Woods in the sense that our whole goal was to build capacity in that program and in our own employees. So like I announced the previous board meeting, we have Jennifer McCroskey and Emily Nelson, who are BCBA certified now. And just yesterday, Dr. Martz passed her BCBA exam. So we have 3 of those in our system now. So absolutely, our plan is to try to fade Dr. Mitchum out and, you know, have Emily and Dr. Martz and Jennifer McCroskey respond to those needs. Just something that we have to keep in mind is that they're sole behavior coaches at other schools, so they're not always on call and available like Dr. Mitchum is, which is why we kept that, still have some funding in there to call on her when needed.
Okay. And to answer, maybe you didn't hear Mrs. Seabold's question, but part of that 1,500 hours of supervision, that was not built into their tuition through what we were paying. That wasn't included. That was something extra we had to pay for the supervision, the 1,500 hours.
Yes, that is correct. And then also we have interns in our STARS program that are through that program. So Dr. Mitchum also comes and supervises them to provide instruction to our students. So right now we only have 1 intern with us who I believe will be completing her certification here soon too.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I kind of don't understand what you're saying. Are they working through Cal State, those BCA people and those interns?
Yes, that's correct. And like Ms. Schweitzer said, that was written into a special education grant that Ms. Raybold had written into for one of our state special education grants. So that's kind of how we got everything up and started. So they were going through the CalU BCBA program, and all those classes were funded through that grant. However, Dr. Mitchum is a person that we have to contract with to come supervise those. So she works for CalU, but also works as a separate agency to provide that supervision.
Okay. So CalU, even though they're CalU students, and we're paying, you know, for them, for their program, you're saying CalU doesn't provide any supervision, much as a student teacher would get from Frostburg University, somebody would supervise that teacher?
Yes, that's correct. So we would still have to provide the supervision in addition to those coursework, the course credit, yes.
Okay, all right. I think that answers, you know, our questions that we have. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
okay, so on page 138, is transportation, Ms. Siebold has a couple questions. So the first one is the learning beyond the first one is about field trips. And you're correct, the the detail that is here does not add up to the amount. So Mr. Wizlowski and I will work on that. He has all the data on where he wants that money, but those were the totals. Then there is $2,000 extra in the field trips that's for discretionary, and it's not listed as a discretionary. So it is $2,000. Like if you add up the field trips, there is $2,000 discrepancy because of the discretion. Then the second question is about the Learning Beyond the Classroom bus has been overspent for $5,000 since 2018, but only $3,000 was budgeted again. Has the bus been in use before the pandemic, and will it have a regular schedule again soon? So while it does say Learning Beyond the Classroom bus, the gas, oil, tires, parts, bus, and general supplies here all go towards the fleet vehicle for transportation as well. It's not just the Learning Beyond the Classroom bus. The Learning Beyond the Classroom bus is not operating right now, and it will depend upon the governor's executive orders when that will go again. So at this point, we are unsure of when that will go.
Monica?
Before we get any further, when we're talking about the budget transfers, you said like the ones we've been doing currently would be reflected into this budget book. Well, I actually had that here for question. When Ms. Siebold asked that question on, I believe it was page 134, 135, activity 451. So that $40,000 that we put into health services was moved from pupil services. Is that correct? That's what it says. So that would have been like just maybe where someone's getting paid pupil services, it's now they're getting paid out of health services, correct?
No, it's because remember we weren't at tentative agreement.
Okay.
So we did an average on where we thought the salary increases would be. Well, the nurses got paid more than what we thought the average was going to be.
Okay.
And so it was basically a correction of the estimate that we made because we weren't at tentative agreement.
Okay.
We're going to have the same thing this year too because we're not at tentative agreement. We weren't at tentative agreement when I had to do that. We're still not at tentative.
Right.
You have to apply the increase in some manner. So that's what we have to do.
Okay. And then my next question to do with the budget transfer, it actually has to do with pupil transportation. And down here I see under insurance vehicle on page 138, 139, we have an increase. But we was told April 14th, as a budget transfer, it says increase pupil transportation vehicle insurance by $30,000, and that was because the rates had increased, correct? And that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then plus an additional $4,000 for a COLA.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so then on page 142, Ms. Siebold had another question about the general utilities object, which is under other, the second part of other is the
42424 is the number.
So this is another one of those things where we actually pay for the Johnson Control lease payment here. It sits in further back in the debt service fund, but on the first day after the budget's approved, we transfer the budget amount to stick to operations, and we pay for the 3 payments that are paid out of the 249901. So,
So general utilities,
it's just called general utilities.
it's the payments for Johnson Controls.
Yes. It's
And then I understand we didn't do it in FY20, but we spent the money. We hadn't paid it yet. well, we paid 181, there was nothing approved.
Right,
There
because
is
you don't have
nothing
a
ever approved
revised
'cause it's-
column. You don't have a revised column for FY20. You'll have the revised column,
Okay.
you don't
okay.
have the revised column, so the approved is gonna be 0. And at 12/31, we'd only paid one of the 3 payments.
Okay, that's the 181.
Right.
Okay, but I never get that. Thank you.
So then there's a second question, on this activity. It's noted that all safety, security, and risk management expenses must be coded with allocation number 60. So, you can see throughout the budget book where we've provided allocation numbers. Field trip is probably the biggest example of that, just a couple pages ahead. So college of me is 34, CTE is 35. It's just another way for us to code and track the detail of what's going through these objects. So while the MSDE financial manual has not designated safety and security as its own operations activity, it's still under operations. So at this point, until we have further clarification, it's not necessarily necessary to create its own activity. We're just coding it with a 60.
Where is one at? Where is 60 at? Oh, down here, insurance and property? Does it mean 240860? What is 60?
So in the string, see how there are X's, like right before the question mark? There are 2 X's. That's where 60 would go. It's just in the account string. It's just another way for us to be able to track detail of expenditures.
I see 600 out of 50.
No, see where it says, like salaries and wages at the top, okay? And see where it goes, question mark, see the 2 X's right for the question marks? That 60 would go right in there. That would tell them that detail of where that money is going to, would be going to safety, security, and risk management.
It might be
But right
40
now,
or
there's
something
nothing
else,
budgeted
or-
to 60.
Oh,
There's no
okay.
detail to 60 at this point because it's a brand new thing. We don't know what the needs are. So
Okay, so everything that's done, safety, security, like we have a person working that and all, that's all here on the,
yes,
the salary and.
exactly. And that's why we had that budget transfer earlier in the year because the person had been split 50-50. And now that person is 100% in 600.
Sorry.
On that page, operations, like, I see our trash removal was went up, $10,000 more. I guess that's something that we bid out, is that correct? Like, we do, like, different things?
We actually have not bid that out, and it's on Rich's list.
To bid out?
Yes.
Okay.
The electric was a higher amount, so we went for that one first. So we're working it down.
And then the furniture and fixtures that we were talking about earlier, we don't have one for this budget, but will be in on the following budget. So that's where that was, but we have no money allocated, correct, furniture and fixtures?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one more question for my list.
Mhm.
The 30,000, that we, agreed to pay yearly, to the college for the person to run the theater or be in charge of that, where, is that? Because that would have started this year, right? The contract?
No, FY22.
Okay, where will that be?
I'm assuming it'll come out of, honestly, I really don't know. I mean,
Okay, so it wasn't in here?
No.
Will it be in next year?
right,
If they stay on schedule where they are, it'll be in next year.
Right.
We don't have to start paying it until we actually have the person.
I know there was dates on that contract.
I have one more for that page, I'm looking.
Mhm.
I see like under, so activity 600, our gas, oil, tires, et cetera. It was 1,000, now we have a 16,000. Was it located somewhere else, like in a different category in the budget?
Yes, so tractors and their supplies and materials should be coded out of operations,
Mm-hmm.
and they had not been. So as part of that scrubbing the MSD financial manual, that was one of the things that we saw. So a lot of it has already been we've recoded it
Mm-hmm.
to 600 in this current year. So yes, that's exactly what it was.
Okay.
It came from maintenance. It was just a reallocation or reclassification.
Okay. And this, I don't know if this is where I would find it. I believe last year it came to us, or it was, I don't know if it was in the budget or budget amendment to have money for emergency repairs.
That's in 700.
Okay.
On page 152.
Mm-hmm.
And so, actually, Mr. Wazlowski and I have been working, and we're going to code things just a little differently so that we have the specific projects on one object, and then supplies and materials just for fixing things on another line. So you'll see it on page 152. It's 232926 B/G supplies, and then it says unplanned repairs, $125,000.
Okay. Because we didn't have quite that much last year, I don't think, did we? Was it 50,000 or what did we have? And then, was it? I can't remember how much it was.
I was thinking it was like 115 or something.
Yeah, it was over 100,000.
So then that is like for the larger things. So I guess back on page 142, 143, we have the equipment repair. Or no, sorry, equipment preventive maintenance, that's just like repairs that need to be done. Is that correct?
No.
No, it's
Preventative maintenance is our contracts that we have for our elevators, that they come and they inspect them and they,
Okay.
we have to have contracts on certain, facility things. Johnson Controls comes and services on a periodic time frame.
Okay.
So that's what those are for. So I think, of the questions, I think we went through all of them except, Mrs. Baker, there was a question from Ms. Siebold on, the vision, mission, and goals. My first question is, how does this budget address the first budget initiative that is listed on page 8, which is to dedicate resources to address discipline issues and mitigate student behaviors at all grade levels?
Right, and I think Mr. Woods alluded to it a few minutes ago. In my original budget presentation, I had really hoped that we would be able to work a supervisor of behavior support into this budget. It was not worked into this budget, but we have a number of initiatives, including PBIS, which addresses that. We have added another behavior coach into the budget to address that. And some of the ongoing discussions we've had this evening about the STARS program and building our capacity, I think addresses that. And we also have a plan in place, depending on what the fall looks like, to start a revised, I don't think we're going to call it STARS, but a revised behavior program at the middle school level as well that addresses that budget goal.
Remember back, when we had code of conduct? Okay. What happened to code of conduct?
Well, we still have code of conduct, but there were a number of disciplinary changes at the state level that we had to adopt with restorative practices. There has been some talk and some work planned with Dr. Lauber's department, to really, look at those. I know that a number of teachers have asked about that. It was a very prescriptive, you know, if a student did this, then this was the discipline consequence. A number of those things have shifted to preventative and, things like PBIS to address those. But a number of them were restorative practices as well. So I don't know that we officially abandoned the code of conduct, but it has been replaced at the state level and then through a number of years of work through Dr. Lauber's office with the principals to look at some other ways that's not.
So there's nothing that would prohibit us having a code of conduct that's prescriptive in terms of.
To my knowledge, there's nothing that would prohibit us.
Yeah.
We may need to revise what we
Yeah,
before.
sure.
But I don't know that there's anything that would prohibit us as long as we are incorporating those restorative practices that the
Sure.
State Department does.
Well, you know,
outline.
you and I have both been teachers, and I know that was.
And principals, and that was
It was very
prescriptive. Yes,
effective.
it was.
It was very effective in a classroom to
Well,
say,
yeah.
here, I can see on the board what's gonna happen to me if I do this.
Yeah, well, and I think go back to just time out.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a T, you got an I,
Mhm.
you're getting in trouble,
Yeah.
your mom told you if you came home with an M. You
Yeah.
know, they
Not
can
an E,
visually
yeah,
see.
Yeah, and we
They
still do a
can
number of
visually
those.
see their life getting worse.
Mhm.
As connected, that way they connected it to their behavior.
Mhm.
And I see the fact that and several people have talked to me about this too, is the fact they have no visual as far as where they're headed, and so it's really hard for them to adjust themselves, their actions, when they're told not to do that and given whatever, you know, or, so visually, I think we need to look back at that. The code of conduct, you've got it written there, you know what's happening, and, you know, with timeout,
No.
you know.
And I think that it certainly did work very well. I think practices like the restorative practices work for, again, 92 to 95% of our population, but there are a number of them
Sure.
that it does not work for.
I mean, it's just another
In their
tool the box.
current form, I think we are prohibited from doing a code of conduct that is black and white. You do this, this is your consequence. But I'll have to do some further research on what is prohibited and how we can adjust some of the things that teachers are asking for to meet the new
I
regulations.
think a lot of the teachers that have behavior concerns are asking for a black and white
Yeah.
directive.
But I don't think we're allowed to have a black and white.
I understand that, but I guess they would like to have a gray directive.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, at least I have these things in my toolbox to use every day. And you as a student see what I have in my
Right.
toolbox to use every
You can
day.
visually
Yeah.
see.
It does make sense.
Where
It
you're
does
at.
make sense, but,
That's maybe something for Dr. Lauber to work on, you know, to
Yeah.
come up,
Yeah.
is there something we can do to enhance?
well, and,
Or-
and honestly, that was one of the things that, you know, I think a behavior supervisor really could work with teachers and work with students on what those consequences would be, even if they are gray. You know, because it was taken out of the budget by no means that it is not necessary
Sure.
expense. It is still, I still feel as strongly as I did back in January that I think our budget absolutely needs some sort of behavior that does nothing but supervise that particular aspect, because again, I'm not sure what we're going to see in the fall, and I'm very worried about that.
Well, I think when a teacher has a way of showing a student, that they have, done something right, yes, and they're able to express that in some meaningful way. But I think now, they're probably feeling that they don't have that strength behind them, you know?
Oh, I think you're right. I think they are feeling that way. I think they are feeling that way.
I don't know that we need a person, you know, I think what we need to do is, look at what is allowed and have, you know, you can have a committee of teachers and have a meeting and say, okay, what can we do to help you feel that you have, you know, something to work with in your classroom.
And that is some of the research and the idea behind PBIS as well, so the positive behavior intervention supports. You know, that is the goal of a positive behavior plan. But again, it doesn't work for everybody, so.
Right,
We do
and
need
you
to
might
go back.
find in elementary, there's less, understanding of that, because it's not really that visual, and it's later on you're gonna get this or whatever, you know. Whereas you can see that time, that T go up right away,
Yeah.
and you're, you know, so maybe different age groups, you know, there's
Oh,
different.
absolutely, and
I think, you know, it goes back to what we said, you know, for several months now. Not so much now that we've been doing this, but before we did this, our number one objective was to work on behavior this year.
Right, and that was why the question is, you know,
Sure.
how are
Any
we
of those kinds of
investing
things
money
will help.
in, in behavior, helping the teachers and the students.
Yes.
I have a few more questions.
Okay.
Because like we were talking about behavior and things have changed, we probably went through a lot more paper for the packets that were made, would that be? So when I look at page 64, 65, under our general supplies, you have system paper bid, like did you increase that any? Or?
Yeah, each department, weighs into that depending on, I'm not exactly sure which page you're on. Each department,
64, 65, majority of elementary is what it is,
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to tell you if we used more paper. It probably seemed like it because of the packets, but remembering then they weren't, you know, 7.5 hours of the day running off papers and using their paper allotment. If we see that we can certainly, if we see that we need that, you know, they're not gonna go without. We just didn't, I don't know that we made any adjustments. I don't know that it was more, that we used more. We use quite a bit at the elementary level, of course, well, at all levels.
And that might be included on the monies that care, that you could, you know, pay for.
Possibly.
Because of the,
You know,
you might could get your iPad.
Right.
Well, when I look at art, on page 42, 43, I think of the arts fair. I know it's not going to be held this year, and I know that they really could use more money, like especially the art teachers. I'm not sure about probably maybe music, but for the art supplies that they need to do all this. So the money that wasn't spent, for the art fair didn't have, will they be able to be carried over, and they can just add it to the arts fair next year, or how does that?
well, it's not really carried over. You know, I think what we do each year is look at what their needs are and try and provide for, as much as we can to do the arts fair. There's always, you know, we've increased the whatever they call it, the display boards and all of those things that they need, and increase the music allotment for the honor chorus and all of those things. I don't think we would necessarily take what we didn't use this year and apply it to next year.
Because I'm just thinking, like, say, double mount a lot of the pictures that normally would mount it, but they mount them to hang up. So that's
Right.
a lot of paper, not alone the glue that they use.
Sure.
Because right here it says arts fair, general supplies, and then in parentheses it says $550 under art. So do we allow $550 to be split between all of the teachers for the extra supplies they need to put this on? I mean, I know that they get an allotment in a
I
class.
want to get that answer for you. I'm not sure of that answer.
There, that, like a low
May I
amount.
interrupt?
Oh, yeah,
Yes, please,
Mrs.
Sandra.
Proudfoot, yes, she's the.
I can answer that question. We also have a fine arts grant from the State Department, and that is mainly what is used for the fine arts fair. This year, because we didn't have the fine arts fair, the teachers all received an abundance of extra materials in preparation for next year. Then we will still get that fine arts grant from the State Department for next year as well. So our people are covered very well, actually, with materials and items like that for the fair. So just
Thank you, Mrs.
Just-
Proudfoot. Yep,
you're
perfect.
welcome.
Thank you.
You guys worked so hard on that. I really.
Yeah, we missed it.
Missed it. Yeah, thanks.
On music, on page 50, 51, when I look at teachers, there's a decrease. That means just a different shift in, maybe
Yeah, we had
staff or something. It's not that we've
No,
not taken away or eliminated any.
nope, there are no positions that were.
Right. Well, someone was looking, I just wanted to verify it. Spanish. Well, it says, world language on page 46 and 47. Do we really offer Spanish? Is that correct?
Correct.
And I see a decrease. Does that mean like the same situation, maybe?
I would imagine it's a lap salary,
Staffing,
it's a,
staffing
yeah.
change.
Yes.
But no positions.
A lot of them were already asked. You might have answered this one. This might have been the question that Ms. Siebel had, but I had other questions here, so I tried not to ask any of them over. So on page 36 and 37, when I look at top, administrate certificated, is that just because there's a significant increase?
51,000.
Yes.
I didn't ask that, but I have it.
Is that, did
I'm
we
not-
shift someone's position?
Remember, that's 25% of the blueprint funds
Okay,
were added here
okay.
for a position.
You said yes, it's in, one was 50%
And
and two
remember,
was 25.
there's no last salary taken out of administration or mid-level administration. There was no
Change.
There
No,
wasn't.
yeah,
no
okay.
The
changes.
lap salary, really.
Okay, well, I forgot what we learned at the stadium, the 50% for one category, 25 for two others. Gifted and talented, on page 74 and 75. I know that we had the line with ESSA and MSD requirements, we have this here. Now, is it our teachers provide that service? We do it within the school, is that correct? We don't have a designated teacher like we did many years ago, correct? So do they, the ones that are to do it, do they get an increase in their pay, or how does that work? Because we have like teachers written down here, salaries. So I'm just trying to understand, if we don't have it designated.
That's for the portion of the high school teachers who teach AP classes. Remember, we talked about that.
Okay,
So
I see that there, okay.
they might be a math teacher, but they're teaching a high level of math or science or whatever it is.
Okay. It's just when you look at the category, it only says gifted and talented. It doesn't really say, so that's why it makes it confusing, AP classes, right? And I know we said about some of the funds, like they have shifted, like the principal for the STIT, it was in one location, right, and we put into a different category. So when I look at activity 232, academic intervention, page 78, 79, were those for the teachers, was it shifted somewhere, reclassified? That's right? You said?
Yeah.
Okay. They were just put on different pages. That was
No, it wasn't on a different page, it's just in a different column. It had been spent centrally, and now it was allocated out to the principals on their allocation at the very beginning of the school year. So whereas before it's academic intervention, the director of elementary or the director of secondary said, you got $2,500 or whatever it is. Now it's just part of their plan as they're devising it. So it's not any more, it's not any less, it's just
Hello?
Yeah, it's just, that's okay.
So anyway,
I think
it's
she's trying to say the same thing.
like, we just shifted it.
that was my question. So where it says it on here, it's just shifted to different category, a different activity.
No,
No.
not a different activity, a different column. It went from
It's
being
still
county to being school.
So when I look at this page, it's still pretty much the same. Well, I'm confused because I look at activity 232, page 78 and 79. Fiscal year 20, when I go just to the very bottom, take everything else that's out of there, we approved $804,139. Fiscal year 21, we approved $688,428. So that is,
Right. Well, because if you look at the salaries,
yes,
they are less,
okay.
because there was less salary in the academic intervention teacher.
Okay, so
So that, it's not the stipends, it's just the academic intervention teachers.
Remember, we had that discussion this month,
So
last time we met, why were the salaries so different? And you explained to us it has to do with whether they got put in to get talented,
The lap
salary, that.
And we've had quite a bit of turnover in our academic, unrestricted academic intervention teachers, so.
Allison, what is going to work better for you, in terms of having your budget ready, for us to vote on, in 3 weeks? To do amendments tonight, or give us time to look at them and offer the amendments at the budget, at the meeting on June 9th?
Ideally, I would like to be able to present what the finished product would look like. So, whether you can, do it now, or if there's a way to do it email, I don't
think we would
know.
have to do it, we'd have to do it tonight because it's voted on amendment. We're gonna amend the proposed budget. So, if it helps you the most, I think we probably ought to, if we have things that we definitely would like to change, we probably need to vote on those tonight.
I think I would feel more comfortable that way, because then I can provide revised pages, and then the board can have time to look over those to make sure that that's really what they want us to do.
On page 90, 91, under instructional technology, I had just questions that brought up every year. It's under our licensing fees. We've always asked, has it been checked, is there any that we've eliminated, or anything that's not being used, or anything added?
We spent an entire ANS meeting scrubbing the list. So this year, I can say without a doubt, we have investigated that to no end. We did eliminate, I think, 4, maybe 5 different licenses.
Yeah, I think that was from the January meeting when we really had a work session. I think Mr. Woods asked about the licenses, and we did spend a significant amount of time.
We had already worked on that. And,
I remember there was like a blue jean or something. I don't think that.
Blue
So we
Jean,
have,
I started to say, that was like one of the first ones way back.
so then have we,
Time ago.
did we add something, or just the fee has went up?
No, we've added. We've changed things as our curriculum resources have changed, or, we have changed as our requirements are different. We've had to change. So, yes, they're different than what they were.
Okay, and then that, equipment, which we don't have under the 90,000, and that's where we said that would have been for our replacement, refresh of our devices, is that correct, is where that would have been, the 90,000?
That, and also, under general supplies, it wasn't, it had been 125,000, and we reduced it to 57,500. So that will, in FY '22, be increased to at least 125 again. So, because that spending will be done in a restricted.
So it would have been under 2 categories then?
Yeah, it was split.
Okay. That's been the first year we've not had devices. It's hard to, at times, yeah.
I think, for the interest of time, let's take about a 5-minute break, if we could. I've got a couple of questions that, need to answer before we move any further, so. Karen, can you?
Could just leave the room and call it.
Well, I figure other people might need a 5-minute break as well.
Well, we could still leave the streaming running going for 5 minutes.
Sure, we can.
Yeah, Tom, didn't it?
5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, if you would, please, I think, Monica has a couple more questions, and then we'll try to get consensus on any changes we want.
Under our special education home and hospital, page 120, 121, I believe the last quarterly finance report showed a little bit of an increase. So do we need to increase for a home and hospital, or is it okay?
We just keep that flat and then we watch it during the year because it depends on the needs
Right.
of the student.
So if it needs to be increased, we can
always.
shift it from somewhere, maybe. Okay. On page 114, 115, I seen we have $400 more in postage. Are we mailing more things here? Like paperwork and stuff? I just noticed that, an increase.
That would have been attributed to a school active allocation.
Something they gave us.
Yeah, so if one of the schools increase that.
Report cards, the final report cards, they'll still be mailed out like they always are, correct? The ones we just had for third quarter, you got online. So I would assume we would still officially mail the final report card, right?
Well,
That we won't?
yeah, I think we're gonna do it that way.
Oh, okay.
We're mailing them?
No, I think we're gonna do them the way we
We're
did in the
going
third
virtual.
quarter.
Right, we're.
Oh, okay, well, I just know
We
that,
still, we had to mail, I think we had to mail some, but,
Right.
we found that the parents, and it was immediate, and they were able to get right on, and so we were able to, I think that was our plan, was to continue to do it that way.
okay, well, I just thought that maybe we mailed the last one, but,
So you got a response from the parent that they saw it?
I don't know if we got a response, if they had to, I would have to ask.
I didn't have to respond.
I don't think so, but I think we can.
I've seen them,
I
but I'll.
think we can tell who has accessed it, but
Oh,
I'll
you
have to check
can?
on that. I'll have to check, just double check, I'm not sure.
So if we answer all those questions.
I guess that whenever if we don't, we need to put it out there for sure that parents, whether they have to get them that way, not to get them through the mail. On page 102, 103, trades and industrial occupations. This is where you're talking about Mr. Edwards, had equipment use, had decreased it, is that correct? That was one of the things that he did?
Correct.
Okay. And then on page 96, 97, health and bioscience, we just said that might just be a shift in positions or something, or what is it, like, teachers?
Yeah.
It's a decrease.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I have just a couple of questions that don't pertain to a certain page in here. Our 3 reading literacy coaches we have, right now they're currently by, a grant, correct? They're being paid through a grant?
Driving readers grant.
Yes. So would that be in here somewhere?
No.
Okay.
They will be paid through Title I for FY21.
That runs out this year.
Yeah.
The driving
Last
readers
year.
grant, yes, this is the last
3 other positions that we will need to
I would just,
for 22.
Yeah.
look into for 22.
okay. And then I had, remember I had asked last year, a concern from parents is at the beginning of the school year. I know it's not mandatory, it's optional, but the teachers appreciate it, because if they're not there, the teachers have to provide themselves. We ask students to bring in a box of tissues, maybe twice through the year, some disinfecting wipes. I mean, there's school supplies, and I said, why could we not get Kleenexes, disinfectant wipes in the budget, like we do the toilet paper? So why could that not be something that we could furnish or supply?
I would think this is probably going to
Well, I
be a
was just
completely
gonna-
different year.
That was
I
going to be
mean,
my answer.
yeah.
I think, I can't answer that right now, Mrs. Rinker. What we are going to have to provide in the fall as far as disinfecting wipes or, masks or,
Hand
plexiglass, sanitizer,
Yeah.
disinfecting wipes, that's all part of our recovery plan and what we're gonna use our CARES Act funds for, any other funds that we have. So, I remember you talking about it and why it couldn't be purchased centrally, but, I think we're gonna have a lot more in that than, a couple of, containers of wipes for every teacher. I think it's gonna be much more substantial than that.
So the CARES Act would cover some of this.
Well, possibly, I mean, that's what I said earlier. I mean, it does sound like a significant amount of money, but it's not gonna pay for everything that we've talked about this evening that we may need. I don't know if that's on the 4-page list of allowables. I don't know. I would imagine
But it's
it
also
is.
allowable by FEMA. And that's the thing, like, there are so many revenue sources
Right.
for this stuff. That's why we're not making huge changes to our operating budgets, because we're very hopeful that there are gonna be a lot of other revenue sources that will pay for these extraordinary expenses that we're having, when we are having them. I know everyone's saying, oh, you're saving all this money.
Right, no, we keep.
No,
we're not.
I mean, there is a lot of, we're doing a lot of things very differently than we ever have. And so there are expenses to that, but there are also different revenue sources that we've never used before. So that takes a level of understanding and investigating and figuring out what expense is best reimbursed by which program. So the CARES Act isn't like this slush fund of all of this stuff, because when we add it all up, we need like $2.5 million to
do everything we want.
To do everything that we've had go wrong with this pandemic, and we have 957,000, you know, and so that's why we've got to prioritize and also look at all of these other things and target, you know, the CARES Act. The ESSER funds that we have really need to be focused towards instruction, you know, and it's my job and Mr. Wazlowski and Mr. Swift, it's our job to find those other revenue sources so that the operating budget isn't stressed, you know, that we can maintain the mission of educating our students. So, you know, that's why you're not going to see big changes in the operating budget as a result of this exact moment. Do you know what I mean? Because we're working with all these other agencies that we've never worked with before to get revenue for things that we've never had to pay for before. You know what I mean?
As you said all of that, Allison, I think all of us are thinking, I know I'll speak for myself. It's incredible job that you guys are doing to try to find those revenue sources. Because it would be easy to sit back and say, oh geez.
Oh, no.
You know, and I know it's hard work, you know, to find, you know, some place that'll give you $3,000 for this, so you can save $3,000 out of this fund. So, you know, it's everybody should be complimented on all the work that goes in to what's happening right now. Because I for one realize it's a lot of work. It really, truly is.
I would say every single person that's been on the call and every person that's been here this evening is working harder, longer, and more intensely than we ever have before. And it was hard work before, but I am very confident in the fact that we are looking for a number of resources and trying to stretch every single dollar that we know is out there, and we're still looking. But we still don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with that, we have to understand too that a lot of folks are not in jobs that continue to pay when you're not, you know, when you're not working and all. So the parents, we have to realize that the parents could be very strained too coming back. So whether we send those lists home or not, I'd say we don't send them home
Me too.
this
I
year.
100% agree with you.
Well,
I would say
100%.
that, you know, if they need it, we can figure out some way to get it. But as far as requesting anything from parents at this point, I think that's probably better.
Yeah, it's our job to find it this year. It's our job to find everything that we need. Because I know if my grandchildren were going to school here, I would only want them to come to school here if I knew they were going to be safe. If I knew that in that classroom, they're going to have everything they need to remain safe every day. And I think every parent out there is thinking the same thing. I'll send my kids back, but assure me that you're doing everything humanly possible to make those rooms as safe as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess I agree with what you're saying. That kind of goes with when I asked about the home and hospital. You know, there might be some that might have a compromised immune system or health issues. The parents choose to keep them home, and they have every right to that, and I respect that. that might increase, would that be home and hospital then to provide them? So that might be something that
What
might
if they
be.
qualify?
Right.
Because home and
Yeah.
hospital isn't anybody's decision except a physician.
Right.
So, you know, like,
Right.
but again, that's a reactive thing that if we see that trend, then we'll shift the funds. You know, that's what we do. We analyze constantly what the trend is, what's happening, you know. So,
And again, like you have said it, and I keep saying about the technology. I think it's important if we could to get something for our elementary, not knowing,
We're gonna need it.
for the fall. And then you said possibly our technology, would not from this budget, next year's budget, be from energy savings, anticipating some of, like, electricity savings. I believe that was said earlier.
Well, it said we
we'll
have the
have
opportunity
electricity
to think about
savings,
it.
but that's not really where I was thinking about. But
Oh, I thought that was said earlier.
No, we may be able to use it though. If we say, you know,
Right.
If we're fortunate enough to save $150,000, then we say, as a board, let's put it all into laptops. Good to know that we may be getting that kind of thing.
So are you saying renew the laptops that we've got, and how many were picked up, and were we short? Was everybody able to get a laptop that needed it? Did elementary get laptops?
No, well, I believe that people that wanted to do it on a device were able to do that with the devices. The problem is, and it will be, when we start back in the fall, if we don't have somebody there to work on some face-to-face instruction with our youngest learners, they're not going to get enough out of, even if they have a brand new device, if they don't have somebody that can walk them through it, on getting onto it and working on it. You know, you're talking about 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. That's going to be another challenge for us. But we're still in the process of collecting and doing all of that. So I can't give you that information right now if we've received every single thing back. The principals are sending out that information. We're still collecting all that. We're still, school doesn't end and for another 2 weeks. We haven't collected all of those devices. You said if we've gotten everything back, we're still collecting we're still working on those.
Okay.
Most of the elementary students though did work from packets, not from devices.
And then, like, the middle and the high school were the main.
Could be all three. There were some that did preloaded devices that they didn't need internet access, that they just got everything that they needed that was preloaded on their device. Some had it online, that they were working with their teacher if they had good internet access, and some high school students did packets, depending on the course, what the student still needed to do to complete the course. It was a hybrid of whatever the students, the principal felt that those students needed at each level.
I understand part of the need too is with high school students in particular, the laptop is a much more expensive laptop that they have to have because of Project Lead
Some
Delay.
way, yeah.
Because Project Lead Delay loads so many things on it that uses so much of the capacity of the computer that they range from $300 to about $850.
or more.
Right, or more, right, for those real high.
Right, so, you know, that becomes the dilemma is that we don't have a lot of the high-end ones either that we really need to support the high school kids.
Yeah, I would say that the technology devices, probably some of our elementary schools and even the older ones, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, there's more than we realize. They learn fast, and being already using it in pre-K, K1, 2 every year. Now, your younger kids probably no, but some of them,
right, I'm talking early
elementary
childhood.
would really be,
You're right, 3rd, 4th, 5th, yeah,
they've
8,
got
9,
it.
10, 11-year-olds, absolutely.
They would.
But the students that are getting, we feel that are getting the least amount out of our digital platform, what we're using since March 13th, are our youngest learners. They are, you know, not, you know, we feel we'll have to see what,
But I wanted to assure you that Jeff and I have been very proactive.
Yeah.
No,
We have
sure.
purchased over $125,000 worth of devices, like in the last 3 weeks, by reallocating restricted grants that that were opened up to allow us to use technology. We scrubbed the instructional, savings budget variance, and, you know, between the elementary reading series and instructional devices, that is where every dollar that's in instruction is being spent right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have every director, and if they're still on there, they're tired of hearing me say, have you scrubbed your line yet? Because I need to transfer all those funds, you know, so we really have gotten ahead of it. We've reallocated grants that were supposed to do other things. We've written budget amendments and already gotten them approved so that we can start working on devices. So we know that we know that.
Sure.
And I think I heard Jeff chime in, yes, because I also want to make sure he's not here right now, but I know you're on the phone to give you a shout out as far as the unbelievable response you've had in increasing the hotspots as well. You know, every couple of weeks we were putting out, you know, that we had more connectivity. I know it's not every home, but Jeff's team has really done a phenomenal job too in increasing the connectivity on a very short time frame.
Jeff, do you have any thing you'd like to add?
Well, just kind of adding on to what Allison was saying about the devices. One big thing we were able to do was shuffle around some things with some restricted funding and actually take care of next fiscal year's staff device rotation out of this fiscal year restricted funds. So that kind of frees up that chunk of money that, you know, would have had to have been spent next year from somewhere. You know, we've already kind of taken care of that this year, so that frees up a good chunk for student devices. And, you know, in terms of student devices, you know, we average around $300 per device. And a good lifespan of a student device is about 4 years. Whereas a staff device is, you know, more expensive, more high end, and typically we get about 5 years out of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you've heard probably through the comments, you know, we're all very cognizant of the fact that we're going to need a lot of technology for next year. Not knowing how we're going to be teaching our students, not knowing, you know, what the expectations of parents will be for the school system. We don't want to go into next fall saying, geez, we wish we had another 100 devices or whatever the case might be. So we're looking at the budget, trying to find $5 here and $10 there. If we can scrap together one more device, then that's what we need to do. So that's kind of the whole idea of the discussion this evening.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would, so in terms of student devices, we're not in bad shape by any means, but it's different to say, do we have enough devices for every kid, versus saying, do we have enough devices to deploy you know, a meaningful one-to-one model? Because not every student is going to have the same needs. For example, have the project lead the way kids in the high school and middle school who have significantly higher needs in terms of technology than, you know, most other pathways really. So we got to look at what devices we have that are good for one-to-one implementation. What devices need to actually stay in the classroom because they're kind of spec'd out specifically for a curriculum and they aren't really a good fit for one-to-one deployment. And then also, you know, whatever we do to put in place, we need to make sure that we have some sort of cycle to make it sustainable. And, you know, you can do the math on it. We know how many kids we have. We know how much a device costs. We know they last 4 years. So the math, you can see how much we're going to need year over year to refresh these devices to make sure that our students have, you know, a useful device and not just a paperweight.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and those are all obviously considerations, and I, you know, certainly applaud the things that you and Allison and others have done, including Barb, you know, to find monies to start, you know, mitigating the problem as quickly as we can, because I think we all know that it's going to be something that's going to confront us this fall. There will be needs that we've never thought we would ever see.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
One final question. Here we go.
Pertaining to CIP, not just CIP, I had requested that we've had in the past, the priority 1, 2, and 3 sheet of projects. I know with education facilities master plan, we could see things that need it, but I was anticipating that we would have got this with the budget. So will we be
So that's
getting-
something that Mr. Swift always did, and Mr. Wazlowski is doing, his process is different. So he doesn't have that. He has
Right, I think he said that they were gonna try and provide a list of,
yeah.
of all of the projects, and I think we can help prioritize them, but I think at one of the meetings last year, we actually asked you all to help prioritize them as well, so that we would have your input moving forward on some of your thoughts on those projects. And I think as we work on the plan that we hope to have by July, that will be a big part of that, understanding some of your priorities.
And part of that might be what he's gonna bring to us
Yeah.
at our next
With
meeting.
the-
He's
right,
asking
you
me
can
for
have
the
a timeline, right,
timeline
exactly.
of the project.
But this kind of doesn't come from us, this comes from, maintenance. Like, it's things that need to be done that we knew, you know, like, this is an old, last we had, 2017, I think it was. It says, replace carpet in main office, refurbish tennis courts. Like, it just gives, like, he started where he gives us projects that are ongoing, and it says if they were completed, 50% complete. Like, that is very handy, you know, like that. But this just kind of give us, you know, like when you have a mercy repair, like, oh, we knew that might need to be done. That's all I'm saying. It's just like I won't say a cheat sheet, but an idea. And it gives the different schools, like, things that would not be probably listed in anything else. That's what I was
And I understand
referring to.
exactly what you're saying, but he doesn't do it that way. Mr.
Okay.
Swift did that.
Kind of.
And so he's got spreadsheets and spreadsheets of different requests, but I don't know how he has it prioritized.
He kind of did it with his notes
Yeah, with the yellow.
behind
notes,
each,
remember
behind each school on the facilities thing. I said we were missing one for Northern Middle. He sort of listed on his notes, these are the things I think this school needs to have done to it. Now, it may not
He
be
did say that.
day-to-day
Yeah, right.
priorities,
I've
or year-to-year
seen that,
priorities,
right.
but they're all there.
Did that list have money?
No.
Did that list have dollars?
Yes, this does. See, that's the other part of it. To give you an idea of what the estimated.
But see, the thing about that list though is that the priorities were always changing based upon what was happening. If a well broke at Route 40, then
Go
we
right
had
to the
to
top.
change what we were doing. So what we're doing now is on a quarterly basis, Rich and I meet, we scrub his budget, he looks at what is still on the queue, if you will, and what's bubbling up, and it's kind of more real time than that, because there were things that were on those lists that honestly never got done, because there were other things that it was like whack-a-mole. And so, like, you know, you could plan and plan and plan, and he got a lot of that stuff done from July 1st through when school started. He got an incredible amount of carpet laid and tile laid, because he just went through the list and was like, okay, let's get all this tile done. You know, and so even though I know that's what you're used to, he and I are working differently, just because of the nature of the, what we're seeing is happening right now.
I guess I asked because when I had asked before, we weren't really said that we weren't going to get it. So I was anticipating that we would get it. That's why I'm asking. I won't ask again. And the final question kind of parts with that is the money that was a gift from the governor for the turf fields. Like, would that show up in here somewhere in our capital outlay?
Yeah.
Like, is it in here? And I wasn't sure what it was. Where do I see it at?
Page 10,
I was thinking in an activity. Okay.
It's down under the capital.
yeah.
It's under the capital on the revenue side, and then it's back in
It's
I was thinking that's what I was looking at, in an activity. I wasn't
and
sure.
then it's in capital.
I did see where, the commissioners had put in
Capital outlay.
$455,000.
School construction fund on page 178.
So we have money coming from the local government, for the fascia, but we don't show anything there for the turf field.
It's down below. There are two projects for Southern High School that there's the Southern High front facade, and then there's Southern High Athletic Stadium upgrades. Because remember, at the time that this was published, we didn't know where all the funding was gonna come, what was gonna be happening. So then we have $750 on Northern High Athletic Stadium upgrade.
Right, but that's not, we know now that that's not right. So, but it won't be changed in here even though this is not okayed yet, as far as the fact that we're now getting more money than
Right,
the,
we can change it.
Probably should, just so that it shows exactly where the money source is coming from.
right, because the local government, thing has changed. The capital grant program will be the same on the, page 11.
Right.
But if they've got the 455, I think is what, we
Yeah, I
needed
think so.
700 and some thousand. I thought they put in 455.
They have another, I think they have another
But
source that they're
yeah,
going to tap.
So,
I'll let them speak to that, but they told us they have another source they're going to tap.
yeah, I didn't know if that was some, work that they were going to do, but I saw that as well.
On their budget.
On their budget.
Hawkson's,
Yeah.
for,
Yeah, we don't have any control over their budget, but
No.
I did it as close as we can.
no, but I think they told us what they're willing to chip in.
yeah, well, they have, I thought since they had that allocation in their budget, then we should have,
I think part of that probably would not flow through our budget that they're going to use. They're
well, they're showing 455.
yes, that part.
Under the
Yeah.
CIP, I
That's
think,
right.
the capital projects, it said, under their budget, yeah, I had that.
Because the money that's here is only for the facade, right? That's what it says in Southern High School. Okay.
Okay, what I would like to do is, I'd like to, if you have changes in the proposed budget, something that you would like for us to consider, I'd like to do it through a consensus, application rather than, because this is not for action tonight. If we come back in June 9th and you feel strongly about something that you didn't talk about, you rethought it, you can certainly offer an amendment at that time to vote on as an amendment to the proposed budget. But if we could, come to consensus about any changes we want tonight, that would give us a clean budget to vote on next time, which would, I'm sure, help everybody a lot. Were you able to hear that, Matthew and Rodney?
Yeah.
You're still there?
Okay. I would like to
still awake.
I would like to take under consideration two things. The first one I would like to take under consideration, has to do with activity 294, the consultant fee. What I'd like to advocate is to leave $1,131 in the consultant fee for an emergency situation and move $8,000 of that to, purchase devices as needed for the school system. So basically what I guess I'm asking for is, transfer $8,000 out of that line item into the purchase of, whatever, laptop devices, Jeff and his, IT guys think, might be needed for the fall.
You know, my opinion is I'm not sure we need to do that because we still have the CARE Act funding that could be used for purchase of technology, and I thought we heard a pretty convincing argument about why that's some of that money needed to stay in the consultant line item. If that changes, it will always be used at another time. That's my opinion.
Okay.
But I know I could be outvoted.
I don't know does anybody else have an opinion? Certainly, if you have an opinion and don't agree with it, that's fine. Whatever the opinions are is fine with me.
Should see what it looks like necessarily in the fall because it could look different and then we could make changes as the administration sees, and if we need more, that type of thing.
Well,
I
that
don't know.
line item be a contractual agreement. Not,
It's an hourly contract.
But it is a contract that we are, we're not in.
If we need her services right now,
Mhm.
we call and she sends us a
there's
dollar.
there's no minimum service that we have to provide. Okay.
Not that the CBAs are through. It's
Mhm.
just if we have an emergency.
Okay, I got you.
And that's just regular flow, that's not any special ed, even though it's handled through, it's behavior intervention, not special ed money. Okay, separate monies that we can't, that's not restricted, it's unrestricted money. Okay, I'm just trying to get, okay.
Okay.
Oh, it could actually,
Sure.
it could be monitored as we go along, and then it could be moved as we needed it.
That's fine. I'll withdraw my consensus. Given the fact that it doesn't look like there's any consensus. Activity 252. I would like to raise the equipment under $5,000 by $1,000 for each school. Adding $2,000 to that line item.
What page was it on?
Activity 252, I'm not sure what,
The activities.
That was the
The
co-curricular.
activities are not in order.
no, yes, yeah.
Activity numbers.
I didn't put a page number, I just put 252.
It's page 66.
56?
I got it. Okay, you want to raise what?
$2,000, $1,000 for each school for, equipment under $5,000. Try to help out with some of their ongoing costs they have each year to help fund their activities at school, both high schools.
So this year, the first 6 months, they hadn't spent anything out of the 15.
Remember, that's the one I need to get you the answer on, Mrs. Siebold. Remember that, I've asked Mr. Edwards, he has to,
The 21,000.
Yes.
650 thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so they did spend, but they overspent.
but we,
Oh,
no,
okay. Okay.
but,
That was a different.
right, that's the same, it's on the same page.
Yeah, it's over 5,000,
yeah.
I'm talking about the under 5,000.
Yeah.
Right, but
Some
they didn't
meetings had
spend
it.
the under 5,000, so.
Exactly. Right, so we're spending, I'm hearing no objection on that one, so I'm assuming that
Is
one.
that because they needed in the under 5,000?
There was probably, he is gonna check, there was probably a purchase that they needed that was over 5,000 this year. It's, next year it could be 10 things that are under 5,000, next year it could be one big thing, we place it there as a budget line holder. But
It was Gator.
I was gonna see if it was a Gator, I wasn't 100% sure about that, so, yeah, for the,
Pick
the athletic trainer, for the athletic trainer,
Get up.
So there's one at
Greenfield.
Northern,
Yes.
one at Southern.
Yeah.
It was a combined purchase with the SGA, NGAA, and the high school activity accounts, and.
Yeah.
So you forfeited the under 5,000 to spend for the over 5,000.
Right.
yes, and that's why, because you have athletic trainers, and they need carrying it in their car,
Right.
that's what it was,
It was so long ago.
Yeah. It seems like years ago, it really does, it seems like years ago, with
Worlds ago.
COVID-19, March 13th, the
They
whole year,
didn't heard anything about it, so.
I get a thing,
Any objections? So we can move on.
consensus on that one.
I don't know.
Pardon me?
I keep throwing up objections, but this is gonna be a tough, budget next year, I think. I'm just not sure where you're gonna move the money from to do this, Tom. And, we've done a lot, we've done a lot for, activities and athletics in the last month, I think. With the turf, the expenditures on the turf fields. But, 1,000 isn't that much, but I just want to make sure that it's not taken from anywhere else it's needed.
Mrs. Schweitzer raised her hand, so she knows where she would take it from, so I'll let her
So,
speak.
when, activity that was uncut this year was Board of Education. And there is convention money and reimbursable mileage and travel reimbursable expense. Dues and fees cannot be cut at all, and neither can public relations. But, there's a little bit of money there, on page 20, that if you're looking for a little bit to move, that would be an option. When I proposed the reimbursable, decrease that the cut that we had, we did not remove any from the Board of Education. So, I think that should be up to you all, if that's.
The convention, NSBA convention, that's not the one we go to Ocean City, or to
No,
Annapolis.
that's the national, I think.
Well, there's $1,275 that we're not gonna use.
This is bad. I don't mind taking money from that conventions and stuff. My thing is, a lot of different activities could probably use 1,000 here or there, and it's hard to just say this one. I guess that's where.
I will withdraw that one as well. Then I'm not gonna make any more.
Not first time, not what you
You guys aren't invited to the next meeting either. Any others? Does anybody else have a movement, any money they wanna move?
No, I was just saying, my concern was took away, like, to me, it's a good amount of money from the high school for supplies, and I mean, like, that,
No, you're right.
that really bothers me that we remove that. I'm sure it's probably.
Well,
critical.
honestly, I think we should, I would remove the $1,275 somewhere. Doesn't need to be in our budget, at the Board of Education. We're not gonna go to a national convention.
Could be for the supplies, students are going to come back to school.
100%. Well, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it.
Yep.
We're used to have it sitting there when we know we're not gonna use it.
Especially at elementary, there's supplies needs and middle.
Fine with me.
Well, and I will say too, I know, I know that there are cuts, we had to make cuts, I agree, Mrs. Rinker, there's never an ideal time to say, well, let's take it out of the instructional line item. But 3 months ago, we were still working and we didn't know what the CARES Act, we didn't know what the print was when it was vetoed. We were about $750,000 that we were looking to cut, and I think we've done it in as few places as we can. That didn't end up being the final number, but we've done it in as few places as we can that would have an impact on teachers or an impact on the actual classroom or class sizes. So there's never an ideal time to say any that impacts the instructional materials. I agree with you.
Well, that money's in there. Money's in there can always be transferred as Anita Rogers, right? Or it has to be more.
Yeah. And it's been discretionary funds for the secondary director, and it really was not equitable for elementary either. So that's why we did look to cut that, to at least reduce it. I don't think any line item was didn't cut any completely. So. Well, we can certainly do that one.
Yeah, the amendment that we take that money and put for supplies.
Yeah, just a consensus. Are you
Mine.
guys in favor of taking the $1,275 out and putting it in supplies?
Into what? I didn't hear it clearly.
Are you okay with taking the $1,275 out of the board's national convention, since none of us are gonna be willing to go, nor really should we go, and put that in supplies and materials for elementary education?
I don't mind doing that as long as there's a need. That's where the need is. But
I think that's
I don't see the reason why it can't sit there until there is a need identified. Suppose we have to cut the budget. I mean, that'd be a perfect place to cut. I'm just why limit yourself right now to where you can use that money?
Well, I guess you could transfer some supplies and materials later too and cut it if you need to.
Yeah, I think that's what Rodney's saying. It might be supplies and materials, it might be equipment, it might be something else.
Yeah, so if you have to have a cut, that's a better cut than
Cutting and
it's just moving money around right now for no reason, I think. But that's my opinion.
Well, I've got an idea. What about this current fiscal year? If I bring you a budget amendment to move the rest of your other out, and we'll move it to instruction and we can buy devices. How about that?
100% for it.
So.
That's fine.
We've been spending that money when nobody's been going.
Well, the thing is,
Remember, it's not always going.
it's not always going
Right.
to a convention. There might have been something that wasn't a due and a fee that we had to pay an entrance for that somebody, I don't know. Don't know.
We haven't done
I would
anything.
have to.
No, we actually really
No, but it might be
We have
something
to
that,
pay Maeve's things if
Yeah.
you.
Oh, yeah, Maeve's down here.
But that's the dues and fees. If somebody attends a workshop or like when Brandon goes to yes, we have to pay for him to go, and that's where it's hitting conventions, but it's not, that's what I was trying to explain earlier.
Sure.
Yeah,
That if you would cut my convention, I wouldn't get my DFOA updates, I wouldn't get my AICPA updates. It's all PD. It's not a convention at all. I don't know.
We need to change that, where you have NSBA convention, that needs to be changed to workshop.
Okay.
Because the only thing we actually do, other than dues and fees, is if we do go to a workshop. Would this be,
the only thing I would say about that.
May convention? See, that's what, where's
The only
May
thing I would say
convention?
about moving it now would be if a new board member came on board someday and wanted to start going to more trainings than are offered right now.
Well, if it's indicated training, but,
Right.
I mean, what we're saying is we don't want the National School Board Association, because we're not going, but we still
Right.
do need monies to go to workshops. Maybe they
Right.
charge $70-some for that. And if you got new board training, that costs.
Exactly, yeah.
All of those, this is change, it's not National School Association.
Just change the terminology. I think Allison will make everybody happy. And then if we need it, we'll use it at some later date.
Yeah, it's harder to put back in there. Once you take it out, but if you don't use it, you can transfer it, or if the budget needs to be cut, you can cut it.
Okay.
Any other items, suggestions for Allison? So we're basically saying we like the proposed budget exactly as it has been given to us.
Well, I don't know that we say.
Heard any changes, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of philosophy. I don't like to micromanage, necessarily what a lot of people have studied and decided where the cuts had to be made, and no budget's perfect any time you submit, but you got to realize it can be changed during the year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And as I said earlier, we will know much more next month on what our spending plan is for a lot of those.
But I'm okay with the budget as it's been submitted, personally.
Okay.
Okay, if there is no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Garrett, seconded by Matthew. Those in favor of adjourning the meeting tonight, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. And it is unanimous. Oh.
They always vote yes. You guys don't always notice it, but they always vote yes.
It's been a long day.
I have no idea how exhausting